A relatively quick first game in our Challengers matchup sees Abraham's advance to our best of 3 money match, going up against none other than Virtus.pro. Great to have you back, folks, here at the Deadlock Fight Night number 24, presented by Intel. I'm over here joined by Jason Kaplan and ZP, and we're still reeling after the pure pace of that first game. But Jason, this Paravision Remnants mix team looks like they've got what it takes. Curious to see if they can put a scratch on VP.
It's definitely going to be tough. If you want to ever be tried and tested as a new team or as a team coming together like this, VP is definitely the route to go, and it's definitely going to be that unstoppable force that you have to deal with when it comes to Deadlock over in the EU. A star-studded lineup on the VP side, and they've shown really no weakness in recent times.
Yeah,
now,
and sorry, go.
You're good. You're all good. I'm just going to pivot across a little bit and say, like, we've seen Virtus.pro turn up in some of these big tournaments already, ZP, off the back of this. They're also a team that adapt really quickly to changes in metagame. So now you'd think a couple weeks into this patch, they'd really be looking dominant as they start to have things worked out, as they tend to cotton onto these things a little quicker than their contemporaries.
Yeah, I mean, VP usually is very solid meta-wise. Like, I'll give you an example. Relative to the previous map, you're not going to see anything ridiculous like Abraham's coming out and getting both Great Talon and a Holiday at the same time. It simply is not going to happen. You're also not going to see draft errors, in my opinion, like picking a Warden with a Sinclair still up on the board. VP, they're a well enough coached team that they're not going to make simple mistakes like that. And I just think, generally speaking, their read on the meta is probably going to be more, tightly tuned at the moment.
This is your VP.
About them, Mitch. No, don't say sorry. That you know how that makes me feel. That Virtus.pro, the most successful thing that they have over any other team that I will still say, and I will die on this hill whether you agree with it or not, is the fact that every player on this roster has such a deep hero pool that no matter how the meta shifts, no matter what patches may come, that they are going to have a team who could always be a top 2 team in EU, maybe a top 2 team in the world. Everyone on this roster can play a plethora of themes, except maybe Zergy. Now, obviously, he's the one that we can maybe make fun of a little bit because he does play a very limited kind of pool in terms of like the role he's playing for Virtus.pro. But the rest of them, they can play anything, and that's what makes them so damn deadly. That any patch that comes, they are prepared. Like Listic, I think has been probably one of the most standout players on this roster because he has truly shown to be one of the omnipotent players of any hero on this squad. That I really find it hard, ZP, to never say that I think Virtus.pro are going to fall off. I don't think anyone can say that with confidence.
Yeah, I mean, VP, they're not invincible. They have had periods where they have had bad reads every now and then, but they're very brief periods. Going all the way back to their Buff Enjoyers days, they have been the most overall consistent team in EU. Not always on top. There have been eras where they've been beaten by DMS when they were a team. They've been beaten by Pajulaya Scabria. They've been beaten by one win, or even Aegis Aurora when you go earlier in the year. But the key for Virtus.pro is that they learn, they adapt, and usually even when they're losing, they're not looking bad when they're losing because, as you point out, when you look at the roster, this is a roster that is incredibly versatile in what they can play. We've had drafts with VP where we will just spend what feels like close to 10 minutes wondering, how is this going to pan out hero pool wise? Because there's so many different combinations and permutations that they can play.
We got it wrong so many times in terms of who was going to be playing what. But I think one thing that we can pretty much all agree on is that there's no way, as you kind of already hinted at, ZP, no way we're going to see Great Talon get through. Not with Hoot having a good game on it, not with Listic, Michaelis, and not to mention some other players on the roster who could play for VP side, even though I'm sure you all at home who are watching have seen some of those sick clips out of Michaelis and his owls. If you guys haven't noticed, or haven't seen them, he's like literally sitting between queues practicing on like the test map of flying his owls through, and some of the things he pulls off, I mean, I would want him to fly a drone any day of the week for me.
I mean, we can only hope we get a chance to see that. There's no guarantee that it gets banned out as we head into this draft, but we talked about VP. Let's quickly touch once more on Abraham's, because they're obviously a mixed team, a team under this banner that we're not super familiar with. They, though, had a really strong showing. They managed to get, though, a ZP, a draft that was pretty ridiculous. Abrams, Holiday, Great Talon on the same team. Feels like VP are not the team that's going to let this occur.
No, certainly not. And we'll see here in first ban. I would guess coming in from VP, but we'll see if they ban the Talon or not. I mean, if they can ban a playmaker and angle to get the Talon, force the Talon ban out of Abraham's, or at times just take away the talent and make sure they get a good playmaker. And by taking away talent, what they've ensured here is that they will get either Paradox or Holiday guaranteed. And if you're Abrahams, this means that usually maybe you ban something like a Sinclair, or you ban something that you know VP likes in turn, because if you ban a Paradox or Holiday, all you do is hurt yourself because you're not going to be able to get that hero in turn.
Probably Vindicta, I would guess. Take it away from Michaelis or take it away from Obi Kim, because then, like you're saying, you leave open the Paradox and the Holiday, and you don't want to say you don't have to depend on picking Bebop here, because now I think ZP, Abrahams are forced to pick Bebop in their top 3. Otherwise, Virtus.pro, I think they're going to ban it away, and then that puts you in a really awkward position. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. There's only such a small pool of them available. 2, I guess 3 if you want to count, Bebop and his hook potential. So that's the risk here. Virtus.pro not afraid to leave those playmakers open. I'm being first pick. They know they're going to get one if they don't ban them. So they take Abrams first up here.
What happened with Abrams' stock recently, ZP, in this 1 week off? Because we were seeing games without him existing, and now all of a sudden we're seeing him pick top 3.
I got nothing. This is a dream. I did not wake up this morning. I don't know what is going on. I cannot think of any justification to be picking Abrams first. However, in terms of draft, Abrahams is definitely going to respond with Holiday as one of the 2 picks. Okay, they go. Do they go Kelvin Shiv? I mean, okay, we know they like together on the Shiv. You can force the Kelvin Shiv lane this early, but then you're going to be giving up like Holiday Vindicta on the other side. We've entered Silly Town. This is ridiculous for just 1 week off, and this happens.
I mean, the Kelvin Shiv, if you guys are unfamiliar with it, so strong because of the amount of sustain you give a Shiv and the guarantee kill power you have. Once you get your ultimates online, you lock someone in the frozen shelter, you're gonna get someone low in that frozen shelter to get the insta kill out of Shiv. And that's why we talk so highly of it. Though we've had some varied success, but it's one of those S tier lanes, ZP, where you have Kelvin Shiv, you have Abrahams. Oh my God, it's gonna kill me. Abrams Vindicta as another S tier lane as well. That it makes it like a lane that you can kind of depend on getting that Guardian down right away. And as we were saying, ZP, it forces the Shiv counter pick out of VP.
Yeah, you knew the Shiv was going to be coming on in as soon as the Kelvin got prioritized that early, but okay, clearly it has to be Holiday for the last part here. You took Vindicta, so you can't do the Abrams Vindicta. Surely you have Holiday here, because if Holiday dropped below 3 and VP decided, okay, we want Mirage or a Geist over this, that would be why. What?
Oh, you kind of say
I don't understand. I don't get it.
Well, now, as we know, you have to shoot Ivy in the head, not the ears, to find the hitbox. Massive buff. It's really catapulted this hero into sort of ubiquity.
So for any viewers out there as well who haven't seen, Virtus.pro have actively rocked the gun Ivy with Zergy. We have seen it happen actually a couple of times, or Obi Kim can play it. So again, it's a hero that has a lot of versatility in terms of who they can play it on, and it gives that flexibility within the roster VP for their picks later on. But ZP, can you wake up? Can you pinch yourself for something? Because we didn't have a Holiday pick top 3 out of either team.
That is very, very odd from what we were just seeing in recent competition. They banned Geist. Okay, I don't know why you would pick Warden and then not ban Sinclair. There is no way that VP does not come back with the Sinclair at a minimum, but also the fact that it's just wild because you still have Holiday available. You still have Mirage available. You still have Yamato available. Like, all the heroes that usually were getting vacuumed up in the first half of the draft, the last few weeks of competition, are all still available, minus the Geist in this case that gets banned. VP banning Lash, it's not because VP themselves like playing it. They just know that other teams have kind of liked playing it a little bit more later into the draft. But if you're Abrahams and now you don't take the Sinclair, you have been the architect of your own destruction, because there's no way VP does not pick it in turn. Well, I mean, you would think.
If they take Sinclair, then VP, they can get themselves a Holiday and a Bebop.
Yeah.
And then you have no initiate for Abrahams.
No playmakers whatsoever.
You're about to watch my greatest trick.
Okay. Here's the Sinclair. So Abraham's protecting themselves from so that final stand, the stronger final stand, having to fight against that for most of the game. Playmakers on the table. Do Virtus.pro want to go for them? Powerful lanes already.
It's going to be Michaelis on Shiv, most likely. It's going to be Listic, most likely on Abrams. I don't know where Ivy's going yet, because honestly, it could easily go both ways. It depends on what they pick later on. But I don't know if Zergy will be playing like an Infernus or Seven, because we haven't really seen those two heroes being highly prioritized in the last game or in the last weeks in general.
Do you even want Bebop here alongside the Holiday? Like,
Yes.
Are you picking yourself into a corner by snapping both of them up?
No, I think you want it because Bebop is actually like better than the norm at picking Warden when Warden is available. Like Warden, if Warden gets hooked, Warden's actually like in big trouble. And it's also not bad at like getting Vindicta out of the air too. I think Bebop as a final pick, should they go for it, would still be pretty good for VP. But okay, they go. But also Mirage is still available. I mean, Abraham's probably grabs it here with one of the final two picks. But the fact that Mirage has gone this late, when honestly Mirage's macro element is still really, really important, is also a little bit ridiculous. Although on the same note, Abraham's is also a little bit low on frontline at the moment. Their only frontline is Warden.
Darlings.
Okay, and now they're gonna bring in Calico. So Calico makes sense. I mean, maybe Calico Mirage at the end, but this draft is still kind of throwing me for a loop because it is so different from what we saw just 1 week ago.
I don't really know what happened in this last week, man. I'm honestly so confused. And I guess maybe that's one thing I do like about, or one of the things I really like about Deadlock, is that the meta, even if the patch hasn't happened, the meta can change so often. And to see Mirage pick 6 when he was a top 3 pick, I'd say 100% of the matches we saw in the last 2-3 weeks of play, it blows my mind. But with the last pick out of Virtus.pro, this is where things get a little bit interesting, because you have Zergy can play Ivy, you have Obi can play Ivy, D-Mob's going to be on Holiday. Listic, I'm assuming he's Abrams, but the thing is, we've seen him play Yamato more so for the team as of late. But if we see an Infernus pick, then we know how things are going to be playing out here. Or oh no, it's going to be Obi Kim's Haze again. We've seen it once, and I don't remember it working out well for him.
I'm dead. I'm out. I'm out.
I mean, in fairness, obviously, you know, there were some mild buffs to Haze, right? You can't slide while you're affected by the drowsiness effect of the, you know, the sleep dagger, and also reduces stamina regen, which can be pretty important for locking people down. Also, the ultimate got a bit of a buff that bullet dance. So, look, this is a spicy one. Maybe VP feel like they have enough of an edge that can be a bit exploratory. Abraham's don't. They don't have like a hard initiate here. Is that really that big an issue? Is that a huge problem? Sinclair can copy the lasso, no?
I mean, sometimes you can see that happen where you can get a copy off, but like the overall initiation is going to be a problem for Abraham's over the course of it. You're hoping just to kind of get ahead in general on the game, have more efficient farming, and just kind of win out there and hope that, you know, your front line with the Ward and Calico backed up by the Kelvin will be enough. But the reality is that VP is going to have a way better advantage in just getting fights started, and as a result, you're going to see them being more aggressive into the early and mid game. Where, by the way, part of the reason why you do pick Haze and why, you know, VP would argue that Haze can work out well is that Haze is probably the most uniquely mid-game hero in the entire game in terms of where she's good. She's not the best late game hero. She's not the best in laning phase, but there is that, you know, the window for about like 10 to 20 minutes where she can go around the map with stealth and set up like really good hits with Sleep Dagger and, you know, bring a decent amount of power to it. That's where Haze shines before all the, you know, late game protective items come in.
I love it. Oba Kim being spammed in the chat, not only on our stream, but also in game. But to notice, Shark going to be over on the Shiv, Michaelis going to be on the Holiday. I kind of like this. I kind of like how they're letting Michaelis show he can play quite a few different heroes as well. That means we will have Zergy over on the Ivy. So he's going to be going to gun Ivy. Obi Kim over on the Haze, as we kind of expected. Things are about to get spicy here, gentlemen.
Yeah. I did not expect this waking up today. You know, I thought I had a pretty good routine in order. You know, my sleep has been great recently. You know, everything has been going like clockwork for me life-wise over the last few days, as busy as they've been. And yeah, I don't know. My life is in shambles right now, Jason, after looking at this draft.
Yeah, this is, I mean, okay, a Haze and a Shiv lane. Can't say we've seen this very often, and I'm gonna go on a limb here and say we've never seen it actually as a lane combo in DFN history. I think I'd be safe to say that, right, ZP? I think you can probably get my back on that.
Well, probably because back when we saw Haze played more actively with Shiv at the same time, that was back when we had 4 lanes, and usually you would see different heroes in solo lanes, and you wouldn't see the Haze and Shiv usually paired together.
Yeah.
So I would say you're probably right, or if you're not right, then there's only like 1 or 2 outliers that would be proving you wrong.
Well, again, just to not to hammer this too much, but as we said so many times with Virtus.pro, the flexibility they have in their roster is ridiculous. Seeing Michaelis pick up the Holiday, Dmov, who plays the Holiday, I would say like 9 times out of 10 for Virtus.pro is on the Yamato. And then Zergy, of course, you know, him and Obikim can flex between the Ivy. It's so cool to see, and there's really, for me, no team out there like Virtus.pro when it comes to the flexibility within their roster. But as you start to focus on some of these lanes here, this Holiday and Yamato lane, played by Michaelis and Dmov, could be insanely dangerous, but they're going to be up against some pretty decent poke out of Jamside and Hoot in that mid lane.
I kind of see mid lane as a bit of a wash. I mean, Mirage, Sinclair versus Holiday, Yamato. Maybe a slight edge to the Yamato Holiday lane because it is pretty intense poke-wise, but both Mirage and Sinclair really good early. So to me, that's more of a player skill diff. However, the thing that's ridiculous to me, given that it got obliterated last round, and it was Abrahams that did the obliterating, they decided that, no, we want a piece of the ward in Vindicta lane. And we'll see how this one pans out. It's not up against like as tough a competition with Ivy on the other side, but you know, the Ivy Abrams lane. So we'll see. But they decided they want to run that lane back, and they weren't even the ones that ran it last game.
Yeah, it's kind of scary, I'd say, to play the Warden in that lane, actually, because if you ever go in to get aggressive, there's a charge you have to worry about, not to mention the stone form out of Zergy. So vice versa, either charge hits you into a stone form or stone form hits you into a charge. So you're going to take a lot of damage, and I would expect Abrahams to actually play a little bit passive when it comes to that lane in particular, because the aggression, as we can see, it's all in that right lane with the healing, the sustain that Saint can give Saf on the Calico with the Kelvin. It makes them have this ability to do so, especially when you're up against Obikim and Sharik, who are not really going to have the sustain they would want in this lane necessarily.
Been a relatively quiet lane phase here so far. Neither lane getting massively far ahead nor behind, which is a little bit interesting. I mean, I would suppose the poke power back and forth is relatively even in middle. And as I say that, Zergy getting caught out, and it's Morton doing the damaging blow at the very end. So not entirely expected. We didn't get the full angle on it, but I assume it was just a stake in the jail. But also onto an Ivy is a little bit weird, just because usually you would save stone form.
I think he was like really near the Guardian too. I think he was like pushed up on the plateau of the Guardian, but obviously it's hard to tell from the angle we had. But either way, I mean, Abraham's able to get the first kill, and very important note you do point out with the stone form used as more of an escape mechanism, but maybe they use it to get aggressive initially. But either way, good start here for Abrahams, and honestly, they're going to need a good start and a good middle and a good end to beat the likes of Virtus.pro, who are one of the strongest macro team. I'm going to correct myself there, who you really can't count out at any stage of the game here, especially with the lineup that you have in this one. I mean, if we're talking about late game power, I'd say you really would have to give it to Virtus.pro, the fact that you have Dmov, Sharik, and Obikim all together.
Dmov under pressure now in the Yamato. Gotta do shout transformation, 100 HP, looking over and in, going for the extra parry on tops, chasing down Sinclair, in turn Hoot, in real danger, can't get away. Dmov gonna fish off. Meanwhile, Jamside dying on the other end, so 2 quick picks coming in for VP. This thing start heating up a little bit as we approach 5 minutes.
And this is where I'm getting a little bit worried for Abrahams. You cannot fall behind against Virtus.pro, period. Doesn't matter what their comp is, because they will really punish you with it. I swear I sound like a Virtus.pro fanboy, but I don't think I'm wrong in any of these statements I'm making either, because they have proven time and time again, week in and week out, to be the strongest team in EU. So for Abrahams, we're talking about a way to get into this, a way to really control things. It's looking towards Together to be the one to get farmed up on that ward and to really be impactful. Frozen Shelter had come through. Sharik is somehow staying alive in the midst of all this, but he should be going down. Saf's going to close this one out. And I believe Obikim was locked out. So good position out of Saint here with that Frozen Shelter.
Once best friends, now enemies in this game. The Shiv versus Kelvin lane as opposed to the Shiv Kelvin lane. And look, Frozen Shelter makes opportunities early on. And not only that, but a lot of Guardian pressure on top of it. I do have Shriek rushing back on in. It's going to force an immediate back off from the rest of Abrahams. And okay, maybe they don't back off in time. That is a deeper dive going in on the right-hand side at the moment as they're chasing down both the Kelvin and Calico. At the same time, Saint right now just trying to get away. Same with Saf. And they're able to back away, but they lose a lot of their health to have presence in the lane in turn.
Oh, look at that though. I mean, you see healing right, you see extra regen, you see restorative shot, you see infuser, all picked up here for Sharik, just trying to survive the onslaught they have to deal with in this lane. Tato comes through, knocks up Dmov, and he will be finished off in the mid lane. Good response here out of Hoot. And jam sign. I mean, you know, funny enough, if we looked at the damage numbers at the end of the last game, I thought jam sign would have been higher on damage than he actually was, considering like the presence we saw out of him. Then again, together just kind of overshadowed everyone on his own team. But I do wonder, how are they going to split the resources, the soul resources on their own side? Because together has to be someone you have to focus on. Jam side as well. I think Saf has to be someone who kind of roams around and gives that enemy information. As you do see an airdrop come through, throwing a seismic slamming Listic directly into Tass. You shouldn't be escaping this one.
Listic on the hunt right now. Vindicta on the menu, hopping up and over, going to the ceiling. Go ahead, where are you at? Gonna chase this one to the end. However, Tass making good clearance right now, bringing Listic on a ride. Up and over, Vindicta goes. Up over on top of the rooftop. Healing right popped. So close and yet the stake. Hitting at the very end, triggers reactive barrier. You got Sinclair coming in for the save. Tass perhaps able to get away, and now the real pain coming to Listic, who may have gone too deep. Is Listic gonna get any help in turn right now? You look at the minimap, doesn't appear to be the case. You get the cloned seismic slam on top of this. Listic's just getting beaten up. No one coming to Listic's aid on that long chase.
I don't know how he survives that, honestly, for so long. And also, not to mention Tass with a great tether coming through. Great stake to keep himself alive. I mean, Listic bought a lot of time. Just unfortunate for Virtus.pro, they weren't able to punish it anywhere else on the map. And actually, speaking of that, take a look at Listic. He's going to the right-hand side. He's looking for a gank here on a Saint and a Saf, trying to turn things around into 3-on-2 and maybe look for the first tower of the game.
He finds it. Saf goes down right away. And interesting enough, Saint doesn't decide to drop Frozen Shelter. I think it's one of those cases where even if the shelter was dropped, it just would have been creating a Thunderdome for Listic to continue to beat on Saf in that case. So might as well save the ultimate in turn. But 8 minutes in, still even across the board, anyone's game.
And a slight 3K lead at the moment for Virtus.pro, but honestly, that 3K doesn't really seem to amount to much considering where the waves are going to be in these lanes. But that left-hand Guardian, you know, funny enough, has taken a chunk of damage, both sides, to be fair. And I didn't expect that to be the lane where the first Guardian would be potentially fallen. It would definitely be in my eyes the right-hand side, where currently we're seeing Obikim and Shark being pushed back to their own Guardian.
What I'm curious on here is how Obikim leverages the haze as we start getting past the 10-minute mark. And it's really after the first set of buff fights, first earned fight, where haze makes her presence known one way or another. And it's where you're expecting haze to get you ahead in the game. If Obikim isn't able to take advantage of that window, having the haze as opposed to other options really does start to hurt as you dig deeper into the late game. So very interested to see the haze storyline develop here. Quick little sleep dagger off towards Saint on the other side, and right now, right-hand side lane staying mostly even.
It's just so crazy to see just the presence of a Kelvin there with Frozen Shelter. It's very similar to what we said with Bebop, right? Where you, even sometimes not using the hook and having it ready to be used is already a big enough threat as itself. The fact is you can't really dive on that right-hand side unless you do it really well organized together to make sure you're both in that Frozen Shelter. And even then, you might not be able to out-damage the healing that Saint can do. And speaking of that, Frozen Shelter has come through. And once again, Obikim gets locked out.
Yeah, Obikim in a world of hurt here, potentially. Frozen Shelter has been used. Haze right now on the chase down. Still Obikim. Kelvin right now tries to bait out the parry, unable to connect. Parry down. Bullet dance going to be invested as you see Saint just dancing around the pillar, trying to buy a little bit of extra time, waiting for help to come into play. Help does come into play, and now it's Obikim on the back foot, getting forced back. Arctic Beam slowing him on down, has to take refuge back by the Guardian, so there's some great footwork there by Saint to outlast Obikim, who drops the bullet dance and more.
Okay, well, there's the first two Guardians for Abraham's being taken. The flex slot already going to be unlocked. And just as quickly as we talked about them being down 3K, well, they're going to be ahead 3K. But it comes down to this first earn here. And again, I'm not necessarily sure we're going to see VP try to turn this in, considering they typically like to use the earn as a way to take objectives. But I don't think Zergy can take on together in a 1v1 on that left-hand side, even with the tower being low. We can already see both teams starting to group up towards this right-hand side. Actually, Together's going to ditch his lane, giving over a Guardian to Zergy if Zergy continues to go for the push here.
They just go for straight turn-in.
Are you serious?
They decided they had a window where they could just go for the turn-in, wouldn't get punished, and they were correct. However, what do they give up in turn, if anything? Gonna get a Clone Chow transformation coming in here from Hoot in response to D-Mob's dive. Shout transformation down now for Demov. Demov taking a step back here. 3 for VP in middle. 2 for Abrahams on the other side. So in the end, I mean, VP does get the urn relatively for free, gets him back out ahead a little bit. Take a look at Listic right now. Tornado comes in, he's able to dodge, goes back in, and sets up Sharik. As Sharik goes in, lands a killing blow on the Jam side, who is definitely just way too deep.
Okay, well, Listic, he's gonna fall from this one. Oh, gets a heal up, actually. Health Nova comes through, not gonna save Saint, and Listic will survive to fight another day, but this comes Saf trying to come through, not to mention the Assassinate not doing enough damage on the Listic, who just barely survives here. But Shark will be the one to fall. So weird for me to see the response out of Abrahams here when it comes to like the macro plays. Maybe I'll have to put a footnote on that one. No, okay, I'll have some time to talk about it, because they saw the urn heading that direction, and the response you're supposed to make is either you contest the urn or you go for a big push on another Guardian. So they could have pushed like maybe left lane for a Walker, they could have pushed mid lane for the final Guardian. Instead, they let the urn go for free, they get overwhelmed in the right lane, and then they don't do anything in the mid lane. And that's kind of one of those macro plays that I was talking about in the first match that Paravision had struggled with in the past, and they didn't have their appropriate response, I would say, with how they played things out.
Well, speaking of responses here, we got Obakim. That's now here on the mid-game haze, now activated. And we'll see how Obakim is going to make this work, because this is generally about 12 minutes. You're going to see the haze get very, very active on rotations. You're usually not going to see Obakim stay in one lane for any amount of time. More trying to make things happen. Meanwhile, though, Frozen Shelter going to be dropped on down. And it's Michaelis in real danger. Isolated out. Lasso already on cooldown. 20 HP. Desperately trying to get away. Gets a little bit of cover from Demov, who is able to, you know, provide a little bit of a physical barrier. And somehow, some way, at like 20 HP, Michaelis lives.
I mean, I wish I could do that in my own games, but I always get chased down. Well, let's be honest, I would have gotten that far. I would have died way earlier in that engagement. I think we are seeing some sort of response, though, out of your question of like, how are we going to see the haze utilized? The only thing I worry about it, I mean, the thing is you could like split push with it, you know, pretty decently well. You can be relatively safe. You can get your smoke bomb off. You can do a lot of damage to these walkers. And also, I think you could duel pretty decently against Jam side with someone like Obikim with the mechanical power he has as a player. But then that means Zergi's not able to get farm in those lanes. So I'm like curious, how are they going to actually work around that fact? Because they would typically feed Zergi as much as possible, especially since Gun Ivy takes a little bit of time to get going.
A little bit of time to get going is generous. It is your late game backup plan, where if you look at VP and segment who's most important at what stage of the game at the moment, it's they want Michaelis to really be the main driver, Michaelis and Listic in the early game, into Obakim being their big play in the middle game, into Zergi and Demov in the late games. However, Frozen Shelter can be used here versus Shout Transformation. The old 2-on-1 in the freezer. As we see Demov just bouncing a little bit back, using terrain to his advantage, able to get out as the Frozen Shelter is over, but it's turning into a big scrum here into the middle. Blue and yellow everywhere. Michaelis goes down while trying to give a little bit of cover, but so does Hoot in turn. 1 for 1 thus far in the middle.
Well, there's the last stand coming through together. Needs a slowest, needs some way to chase. Maybe just gonna go for the Guardian instead. They will be able to take this one down. You can see Zergi still farming off the left-hand side. Shark still pushing or putting pressure on the right-hand side. Either way, Virtus.pro have already got themselves a flex slot, but Abraham's able to get the initial Guardians down, but they have lost the lead here as they're sitting down by 3K. As we're approaching the second urn, this is definitely where VP are already poised for, as they have multiple members on the right-hand side of the map here looking to pick this up, and it will be a...
I don't love VP going for this urn. If they're not able to pick up the urn, I don't love their 6v6 fight right now while you're still waiting for Gun Ivy to come online. I feel like this could go quite poorly for them based on the comp and where we are at, especially open air versus the Vindicta. This, I don't know, if you're VP, you would love to just get the urn and go away, but Abrahams is all over the pickup point right now. They're going to force things here and get the early urn pickup. And if you're VP, Jason, I almost think you let this urn go and you try and get macro objectives elsewhere on the map.
Yeah, that's the style they would typically go for, to be honest. And it looks like they're going to be going for a lot of pressure on this left-hand Walker, because they're also leaving open the right lane Guardian to be taken. So they actually kind of transition into like a subtle bit of control around the turn-in while also still pressuring. But Obikim getting caught out. A tether turning into his noose, but he does somehow get away from this one with the back of the rest of his team. But the urn, it's in hot pursuit of being turned in here. Saint looking for the extra souls for his team. There's a teleport coming to Obikim to get away.
That is ridiculous that Obakim doesn't die there. Tash just a little bit off. However, now you know for sure that there's no haze here, and you're going to get the urn in response. Meanwhile, Obakim decides to go off the other end, go for a little bit of walker pressure. So it is the trade-off here where VP, I think, correctly recognized that they weren't equipped for the full-on urn fight, and they just try and go for walkers instead here, Jason.
Yeah, that's, again, very smart macro play of them. Saf's going to fall in mid lane, trying to get some farm, as a return kill had come into Obakim on the right-hand lane. They don't get the walker down. They get some initial damage onto it. And the soul difference is still about 2k, so it's not even like Virtus.pro really lost much with letting the urn turning go for almost for free. And now we're going to hit a little bit of a slower part of the match here, going back to some farming of the jungle. So a lot of time before we do see the next urn spawn back in. And with all guardians being taken, it comes down to like who can get these catches in the jungle to start to snowball into some walker takes, or maybe even a mid boss, to be fair.
I don't love some of the scaling for VP at the moment, where you look at the average souls of the game, you look at, or the high end, where Together is off at 20k. Abrams being down at 13, 14k, I think is a bit of a problem. The front line for VP, you're really heavily hoping on the Amato Shiv, and Listic has almost been reduced to support Abrams to an extent here. And I feel like most of the times when you end up in games where your Abrams ends up like really behind the curve, teams struggle to get presence in the front line of the team fight the way that they otherwise would. So I think to me, as this develops, it's not great for VP. I think any 6v6 fight that goes on right now is actually a bit of an advantage to Abrahams, even though they're behind in the aggregate by about like 4k at the moment.
I want to say though, like for him, I don't think you can be this like brute wall force for Virtus.pro, because I don't think as Abrams right now you can afford to get so aggressive in the enemy territory, like into a fight, that you're not going to get caught up by a frozen shelter or a tether and then just be demolished. Like he doesn't have his debuff remover yet, so he can't really get away from like a tether or a binding word. I think he's more acting like kind of supporting ZP in my eyes, like the warp stone as well. I think he's looking for like some initial catches with the warp stone to allow a kill to come through. But I mean, I definitely agree overall is that, an Abrams on low farm isn't really going to be that impactful in a fight.
Right now, we got rotation here from Abrahams going off to the right-hand side, looking to keep the walker protected. We'll see how this goes here. Lasso used early on Together, assassinated as a result. No last stand able to be popped, so a very surgical hit coming through for VP. And now Abrahams, though, still rotating over, still looking to make something out of the situation as Jam side faces off against Zergy in the Gentleman's Farm Agreement lane, which is what best described left-hand side. Rabbit Hex in on the Demov. Demov backing up, still has Shao transformation in reserve. Off here in the middle lane, and Jam side immediately going back for a little bit more farm, as you see the pressure is still on the right-hand side right now, Jason. They're just trying to buy time for Together to get back up.
And then VP trying to get some chip damage onto that walker, maybe a catch, as they are in hot retreat here. 30 seconds till the buffs, and of course the next urn comes through. And you can definitely see both teams going to be turning their eyes towards those next objectives coming through here in just a few seconds. I'm also really curious about the builds. We're seeing a ton of warp stones already picked up here for both sides, but also Obakim going for the slowing hex to make sure he can lock someone down with his bullet dance. There we go, 7 seconds EP, and both teams have stacked up on this left-hand side.
The stage is set. It's on the high ground. It's on the low ground. It's blue looking at yellow all the way. It looks like we have a little bit of engage here on the ground floor side, but now going to be rotated more off towards the urn. Airdrop going to be used here early from Zergy. Almost more of a reconnaissance airdrop right now. Again, a lay of the land, driving on down. Looking a little bit for Saf in turn. Either team, though, full committing here just yet. Urn pickup, though, going to be grabbed here by Listic. And that's a quick grab and go for VP. They are done with the rest of the engagement.
Do you think Zergy, when he's airdropping, he switches over from his ball mouse to like his flight joystick? If he has it like on standby at his desk, just switch over to so he can fly a little bit easier.
I wish.
Yeah, that would be hilarious. But yeah, the little bit of reconnaissance coming through. They get the urn. I mean, the turn-in is still going to be insanely hard to pull off here if Abraham's tried to reinforce it. But the lead, even though we haven't seen many kills in like recent minutes, it's still quite heavily going in favor of Virtus.pro, really maximize the amount of farm on the map here. They have a 7-8k lead at the moment.
The problem is a lot of the farm is put in on the Zergy, and Zergy doesn't really want to join these fights if possible. You see a lot of these fights may be like 5 for VP, while they're just waiting for Zergy to truly come online. And as a result, I don't think they really want to go for the Urn turn-in just yet.
No, I think maybe you send Obi and Zergy over to the left-hand lane. Maybe look for that Walker, because that flex slot would be a very good time to have to just see actually Shark going to be there. So again, they're feinting towards the right, and they're going to be heavily aggressive over towards the left jam side. I don't know if he's going to know what's going to hit him here in a few seconds. And I don't really see a world where you defend this Walker. I mean, they're sending Tass over here now. They're sending even Hoop. But I mean, there's still going to be a man advantage for Virtus.pro because Obi is in hot pursuit.
Yeah, for VP, you're using the Urn to just draw people off, and you're looking for things on the left-hand side. We'll see if it pans out. Zergy looking for jam side in turn.
Still the airdrop.
Yeah, I mean, who's just gonna fly away? Meanwhile, you take a look back near the Urn. The Urn is dropped back in lane. You got Together going in pretty deep, backed up by the Kelvin. We'll see if this pans out. Frozen Shelter gonna be dropped. Here comes the last stand. It is the Freezer of Doom. Is Dimov gonna live here? Dimov looking very outgunned, eating the full brunt of the last stand, but is able to just get on out to a point that Together doesn't want to deep dive, knows the last stand is about to fade, has to back out and can't fully get away. So even with the last stand Frozen Shelter combo, Dimov far enough ahead on allocation to not end up taking the L.
Well, the pressure is coming down towards the mid lane, though. Abraham's looking for a Walker in response. Virtus.pro and their own response can push in the right-hand side, where they're still going to have 2 players to deal with. It's going to be Saint, and it's going to be Saf as VP go on the chase here, trying to catch out any single player they possibly can. And Jam side, well, I think he's going to be the one to reap his own death here, as this is able to take him down. Also to note, Dimov ends up surviving that Frozen Shelter because of the rescue beam that Listic picked up, which we did see actually used out of Saf, I think it was last game. He picked up rescue beam too on the Abrams.
Meanwhile, Hoot in real danger right now versus the Holiday, hoping for a parry, and no. Michaelis knows you don't have to throw hands when you have that level of HP lead. No reason to give an opportunity for escape. With 3 pickoffs, the path to the Urn is clear. The path to the mid-boss is clear. VP potentially going to get serious payment off of this. Dimov, even under pressure, able to get the Urn turn-in done, and Saf gives his life for it, while the Rejuvenator is getting grabbed by VP. VP, a full, clean sweep of objectives that has firmly put them ahead in game 1.
So remember what I was saying about macro play out of Virtus.pro and how like no team comes close? This is the reason why I say that. They're gonna go for the chase down over on Together, the debuff remover cleansing the binding ward. There's nowhere gonna go, Warden, only to your grave, and they're gonna continue to push forward for more here, ZP. At least they're initially looking for those Guardians. They have to wait for their wave to push up to help out. And even Tass is like, I'm gonna teleport out of here. I don't want a piece of this.
Well, now VP, they've gotten everything they want and a 20K lead. Yeah, it's been about 24 minutes. Good time to touch base with Mitch. You know, Mitch, you've been watching this entire game. You know, what's really stood out to you here so far as we've, you know, kind of watched the VP macro show?
Yeah, we were honestly like in like a bit of a downtime where there was no buffs to play for, no big objectives, and VP just out of nowhere, they just magic up this like 8,000 soul difference. It's really hard to see where that comes from. And obviously they snowballed that into a big earn take, which is impressive. I think Dimov getting to soak up like a Frozen Shelter and that like final stand combination really hurt Abrahams there, because they had nothing for the crackback that inevitably came in. Guy soaked it up like a champion. And I literally look away, and all of a sudden VP are way out in front. These guys, like you mentioned, Jason, you cannot make a mistake against this team. They will punish you for it badly.
And it's ridiculous. I mean, that's the thing about Virtus.pro. They've been together as a squad for such a long time, making only one roster change with Picky coming out and Obi coming in. This team has stuck through it, and they've had great success. How do you hit that lasso? I mean, you're going to be punished from this, at least momentarily. And you should be falling with only 7 HP. So would hit this man. Eventually, Michaelis goes, but the rest of VP are still going to be here and also running Urn while all this is happening.
If Michaelis had gotten out that time, I don't even know what I would say at that point. One good escape per game, please, when it comes to that. But one pick up here for Abrahams, trying to even the sides here, and they do just that. They take down Sharik. 2 down here so far. Abrahams able to catch VP a little bit off guard. It's not going to fully stop the deficit, but it is going to get them a little bit more into the game. And also, you look at the Urn situation. I don't think if you're VP, you're ultra keen to go for the turn in here just yet. Maybe once Sharik is back up, you try and use the last little bit of Rejuvenator to push Urn. But You know, Abraham's still hanging in there despite the deficit they now find themselves in.
I mean, this deficit is just going to grow larger and larger. Not trying to be a VP fanboy, but again, one thing they're so good at is being able to take any sort of lead and continue to grow it from there. At least for Abrahams, they still have 2 walkers left, and the Urn Tournament will be on the left-hand side of the map, meaning they can defend these with relative ease. But you see Obicam dropping it over. He's like, you know what, Shark? You carry it. You're not on Mo and Krill, but you're still going to be our Urn carrier because he wants to go in for the fight here. He wants to go in to be the frontline damage dealer. The binding ward had come through, the debuff remover, not to mention the rescue beam on top of that to help get his teammate to safety. And Zergy, I mean, he's nowhere to be seen. He's just like, you know what? I'm going to keep farming. And he's at 34k. He's kind of hit that point now as VP, I would say, where he's going to be a massive threat in these fights.
Yeah, finally, it's just you're waiting here. It's like, is the Ivy done yet? Is the Ivy done yet? You're just waiting forever. It's like waiting for someone to finish up in the bathroom before you can finally go somewhere. You know, Ivy just really takes her time. But, you know, 34k, Zergy likely about to be a much bigger force in these team fights. Interesting, though, is that when you go for the lasso and don't immediately get value, VP wasn't really interested in fighting either, even though Together had last stand on cooldown, too. So, it's interesting how the readiness to engage really changes depending on what cooldowns are available in the moment. And this deck hit a little bit of danger. That's Warpstone out. Really nice Warpstone to get some clearance.
I think VP are definitely respecting the last stand out of Together, not trying to give an avenue to actually get insane value off of it. We did see the cloned on Seismic Slam coming through too, but only to really sit there and observe where Listic was going, I guess, at the end of it. But at Virtus.pro, I mean, they had Rejuvenator, and they didn't really get much value off the Rejuvenator, right? They only got the right lane Walker. They didn't get really anything past that. Obviously, denying it away from their opponents is a major factor to that, but not really getting a lot of control off of it. Maybe a lot of farm, extending their lead a little bit further because they're almost sitting at 30k now as we hit the 28-minute mark. But I almost feel like ZP, the next Urn is where the game is going to take a turn. Either it's going to be Virtus.pro closing out the game, or it's going to be Abrahams having a really good foot back into this match.
Abrahams basically has one more team fight on somewhat winnable terms. If they lose another big team fight, the game is over. If VP loses a team fight, they still got opportunities. And by the way, Listic right now getting run on down by Warden, who gets awfully quick in the late game. But Together also realized, no, I don't need to do that. Also, meanwhile, Obakim gets punished. I think got trapped out by the frozen shelter, got the business by Jamside at the same moment. And now looking here down into the Cosmic Veil, the pressure coming in from Abrahams, a quick 2 picks. And Jason, this is where you can get things going. Mid-boss isn't gonna be up in time to capitalize, but this is where you keep looking for engagements. You try and add on to it. Right now, we're taking a look at Saf, who does have Sharik in his sights for a moment. But now with this period, this about a minute of time to go where you don't even have to worry about the most farmed in Zergy, what do you get if you're Abrahams?
I think they want to push 2 walkers at the same time. They're going to make sure Shark stays on this left-hand side while they're trying to overwhelm them on the right. Get a walker for yourself, the second of the game. You already have a flex slot, but the extra souls would definitely help. Oh, with no frozen shelter, like, I don't know how they're really engaged this. They don't have a bebop. They don't have a holiday. They don't have a paradox. They don't have a way to force this fight unless they dive under that walker, or they're able to just take it down outright, which might be exactly what they could do here, considering there's only 2 players left to defend this, because it was Listic trying to keep the Urn out of the hands of Abrahams, who have stolen it away.
Last stand gonna be used here by Together. Together though at half HP. I don't know if he can withstand here versus Yamato, but the frozen shelter will save Together's bacon, freeze him out. But how much longer? The flying strike over and in. D-Mob still wants a piece. Head in for Together. However, the jail gonna come in. Together still can't get away. The pressure from Yamato and D-Mob just too overwhelming. Meanwhile, though, the Urn was turned in by Abrahams, so still not the worst engagement for Blue.
I mean, I think this was fantastic because they were almost down 30k ZP, and now they're down 9k. A massive swing. If they can get this Urn turning as well, they would be setting themselves up perfectly. But look at the damage that Zergy's able to do up against Hoot on the Sinclair, just shredding through him. The airdrop is going to buy him a little bit of time, and it actually will allow him to escape to safety here, it seems. But the rest of the team, maybe not so lucky. Shark on the charge, will back away, realizing he is outmatched in the amount of players. But look at this, VP are set up ready for the mid boss, and immediately go for it, knowing that Abrahams is trying to defend this Urn.
That's the real downside for Abrahams, is that they got 2 picks. They were able to get presence on the map, able to get Urn, get a walker, but they lose 2 people at a timing window that they're just giving up another Rejuvenator. And also VP at the same time. They have enough map. Wait. Oh, hold on. Hold the phone. Going for the steal right now is Hoot. But not going to get it, but because Sinclair can just use the assistant to TP out, doesn't give his life up for the attempt. Still smart play by Hoot.
That was sick. Listic came in for the charge to actually knock Hoot away, and then the spectral assistant to safety was so cool to see. You get Hoot showing how he is a very, very strong player. The bolt dance coming through again. Spectral assistant's able to escape. They weren't able to get the damage down with the lasso. They're starting to get themselves another walker, and Abraham still hold on to the urn in the meantime, trying to keep it towards the base. And look at together. He's actually trying to just push this left-hand wave, trying to force someone to go back and deal with him. I think that man will be Zergy. But Abrahams are still knocking on the front door here. They're looking for the Guardians. They have to be careful. The Obikim's not there. Neither is Dimov. But they're still keeping this pressure on.
I think it's a perilous spot for VP, especially when you get frozen shelter opportunities like this. Are they going to be getting anything off this isolation? They're looking for Michaelis. Michaelis dancing to and fro, trying to buy time, gets away for a moment, and now Listic being the front line, just making even more space for Michaelis, who is very, very low in the moment, off the frozen shelter by Saint.
How does he survive that, though? He's locked in a frozen shelter with, like, what, 3 players of Abraham's? Like, his movement tech alone saves him inside the frozen shelter. It wastes a massive cooldown for the side of Abraham's, that now Virtus.pro can be like, okay, you don't have frozen shelter, we're not afraid to push into you. They get themselves the last walker of the game taken down. They continue to push for more as well off the back of that. I don't know how Michaelis does that. Not once. He's done this multiple times now in this match.
I mean, Michaelis may be playing Holiday, but you can tell me Michaelis was playing Sinclair, and I believe you, because some of the escapes have been nothing but magic from Michaelis over the course of the game. And yet, the game is still very much in contest. You got a fat Ivy on one side, a fat Mirage on the other. You know, in terms of carry potential, you know, people can make the argument that late game gun Ivy is better than Mirage, but Mirage is still no slouch. And even when you look at the frontline matchups, the opportunities you have with heroes like Sinclair, still a lot of ways that Abrahams can turn these fights even down about 30K at the moment.
So 2 things, EP. 1, you can see on your screen, Obikim, he has Curse now. Also, Sharik has Silencer. If you get lassoed in, you're not escaping anymore. Even if you're Hoot on the Sinclair, you're gonna die. But on the prior note you're saying about, you know, the fat Ivy, the fat Mirage, but what else is fat on Abraham's side? Virtus.pro, you have Shark and Dima both at 37K, and the other quote-unquote carries are at 32 and 30 for Abraham's side. So honestly, Jam's side, I don't know how you really pretty much single-man army this defense for them, because Virtus.pro have catch potential. They have 3 carries who are fed. I don't know how they survive this. They could even kill Mikhail S inside of a frozen shelter, let alone the rest of Virtus.pro.
I think it depends really how the fights open up and who is there. You know, particularly your usage of frozen shelter, your usage of is TAS there, the land that's timely assassinate after people get low. There is the execution window for Abrahams to make things happen, but it is, man, the terms of how the fight gets started are so incredibly important. And, you know, not the least of which is if you're Abrahams, you can't have the fight start with Mikhail S landing a lasso. That would probably be the worst case scenario of where you're at.
Yeah, and if you do, I think you have to frozen shelter instantly so you don't lose your player. Like, but I don't know if you want to be using that just to try to kill Michaelis, because we already saw before it didn't work out too well. But at least for now, Abraham's able to maintain control of the urn, though we will see the next urn spawn in 20 seconds, so this one should not be getting turned in. And Abraham's starting to overload the left-hand side, maybe looking for that walker. But we do have the reinforcement Shark and Michaelis. Yeah, they've been over here to help protect. Obigan coming in from behind as well. He might get a catch. He might get a knock off the zip line into a stun. And the rest of VP are looking to maybe storm over it.
And they looked like they were about to be all in, and then they decided, no, not the time. A little bit of look-see over towards Hoot on the Sinclair, but does not end up with Abraham's getting caught. I thought for sure with Obigan coming in from the back that that was going to be it. The only thing I could think of there, we didn't have a view on it. Maybe the sleep dagger missed is where you're at, but okay, a little bit of Calco versus Mono action here. Obikim, though, coming in to make it a very unfair fight. Return the Shadow, trying to save Saf. Saf up, over onto the rooftop. Saf still somehow alive, but not for long. Finished shot by Sharik, who's there, but they give up Dimov in turn. Actually, a pretty worthwhile trade for Abrahams at the moment, but okay. You lose together right on after as the fight evolves. Better for VP for sure. Now you're going on top. A little bit of Listics versus Kelvin here. Dropping on down. Looking up and over. It's Saint trying to do anything to get away. It actually does frustrate Listic, who can't quite keep the chase up.
He's bought time, though. You see TAS come in. You see the reinforcements coming through. Hoot's going to join the party. Jam side has joined once again, and Virtus.pro actually might be overcommitting into this. Oh no, Listic got stuck.
What are we looking at?
He's stuck.
Wait, is he actually just?
He's stuck.
No, Listic.
There
That book, man. That book. It's cursed.
It is, but the urn's still going to be picked back up for Virtus.pro. A turn in on the enemy side. A hook has come through, or a lasso has landed. I don't see a kill happen off the back of that. But that's still be Virtus.pro taking the urn away, still taking the man advantage away from this one. I mean, credit to Saint. The movement there was pretty phenomenal, because even after those first 2 kills out of Virtus.pro, Mikhail is like, here, I have another treat, another present for you guys, because he brings in Saint. But keeping himself alive was very important to the defense. Speaking of defenses, they need to put one up here at the urn turn-in.
See how this one works right now. They have the edge on the urn turn-in. They're going to get it. Just too many down for Abrahams at the start. But do they catch any on the backhand side? Right now, the answer is looking like no. Though, Saf and Ava for him. Still doing a little bit of scouting, seeing if anything is grabbable. And they are looking like they want a piece of Listic. Listic getting very low, potentially caught right now. Over and in. Listic, though, able to get a little bit of support. This is turning into a larger fight. Last stand now going to be used by Together. Looking for targets, was looking for Obakim, who's just got Warpstone out of there. Frozen Shelter going to be dropped on down. The pressure into Zergy, into the freezer. Are they going to be able to take down the Gun Ivy right now? The answer may be no. Jamside caught on the back by the KLS. Zergy still alive despite being thrown into the Frozen Shelter. Take a look at Deemhoff right now. Full HP, ready to rumble still. Has Shao Transformation, good to go. Flying Strike used. Together, falling on the end. 3 down for Abrahams, none down for Virtus.pro, and Jason, we're hitting the beginning of the end.
I mean, Virtus.pro just proved to be too strong here, and you know, we got our answer when it came to Listic, is like, what are you going to be doing if you're not going to be a frontline Abrams? Obviously, he caught up in souls, but him and Obi came together with these rescue beams, have been the savior, and the pain in Together's backside of trying to get these last stands off. They're keeping their distance away from their team, so the last stand comes in, they save their players, they save their teammates, so the last stand doesn't get any kills. And with the 5th kill coming through for Virtus.pro, they immediately turn their eyes over towards mid-boss, and they turn themselves into a 50,000 plus soul lead. This has to be the beginning of the end. Well, I think this is definitely like the middle of the end, I'd say, for Abrahams here in this first map.
Well, as we approach the end, and we need someone that maybe to declare it, Mitch, we're about 50K up for VP. They got the Rejuvenator.
It's absolutely cooked. Just flip them over. They're done. They've been on the Barbie too long. I've got to say, like, just Virtus.pro being able to play around the Frozen Shelter, I think, has been huge. Obviously, that's like, you know, improved reach, superior cooldown, Frozen Shelter. Really big investment here on Abraham's side and catching people out, and they've been good. You guys are putting out mechanics, though, of people like Michaelis, who gets solo caught inside one of those bubbles and is still able to survive. It's about done, boys, so take us home.
Yeah, well, you got the lasso grab there. Not an immediate pickoff. Saint's still down. No Frozen Shelter. We saving Abrahams this time around. Overkill, though, actually diving a little bit deep. Ends up getting caught by Hoot. May have been a copied lasso, actually, that set that one up. And no, wasn't even a copy. That was just raw damage. Overkill, wrong place, wrong time. Still, though, is Virtus.pro pushing, and with Rejuvenator, I don't know if they're too interested in leaving Together, though, able to take down Deemhoff. 2 down for VP right now. Frozen Shelter going to be popped. As VP overextended himself a bit here. Listic, again, pretty low in turn. Abraham still looking relatively healthy on this defense. May not be over yet. Saint able to get Listic. Michaelis can't get away. VP, a little bit of throw action here at the end here, Jason.
It's a great copy lost out of Hoot, though. He catches a Listic, pulls him forward to take a brunt of damage, and eventually they finish off. They get themselves technically the wipe. Obviously, Obakim respawning back in with the help of the Rejuvenator, but the Patron, at least the phase 1 Patron, had been taken down by Zergy last second. So they will still have that advantage in hand. 32,000 souls in the lead. I mean, it's one good defense of Abraham's, but you're still 30K plus souls behind. Obviously not that big of a difference when you're 40 minutes into a match. Obakim. Okay, actually just scares Hoot away and picks up the urn once again. And I wonder if there's a world where we see Virtus.pro shove all the lanes. And again, use this urn as a, either you're going to come contest the urn, or we're going to take your stage 2 patron in the first match. I don't know if they're going to go to that level
It's interesting. By the way, Seth had the blow return the shadow real early there. At the very least, didn't like where that could go. But 30K out is still Abraham's. Not as bad as it would be at other stages of the game in terms of relative power. Last stand nearly back up. You know, VP's still heading into this with an advantage, but that near throw into the Abraham's base, I mean, it's made it a little bit more contestable than you'd expect here, Jason.
Yeah, I think that hold obviously gave, I don't know the actual number, but a large amount of souls that Abrahams needed to kind of make this gap not too detrimental 41 minutes in. But you can kind of see like how hesitant Virtus.pro are to go for that like final nail in the coffin here. They're still respecting the frozen shelter out of Saint. The hook going to come through. The lasso gets a catch. But again, I think that was Jamside who actually, it wasn't Jamside. It was Saf for sure that actually went down from this one. So the man advantage Oi for Virtus.pro. Demov, jet transformation to come through. He's locked in the frozen shelter trying to buy some time. And Taylor's like, okay, I want out. Let me out, please. This is a frozen death fridge for me. And he will fall right after. And Virtus.pro, it might have taken him 2 attempts to ZP, but this should be them closing out the game.
Yeah, a certified Rorschach moment towards the end. And that's just what happens when your Yamato is at this level of farm late game, especially versus a Warden that, you know, hasn't engaged as much into Spirit in terms of buffing up last stand. You're just not that terrifying relative to a Yamato at that stage of the game. You get the pickoffs you needed, you hop on in, and you put an end to it officially. VP taking map 1 over Abrahams.
Man, fantastic stuff by Virtus.pro. And to be fair, if I'm on a ZP, Abrahams did much better than I expected. Obviously, I know they're like a core of 3 players from Paravision, but they have to adapt to the additions of Saint, Jamside, and Hoot. And I think they did a much better job than I kind of expected overall from them, dragging out to 40, plus minutes of time. They definitely had their individual moments as well. Looking at Jamside, picking up a couple of kills here there, especially tornadoes in the early stages of the game. Saint had some great movement with the help of his frozen shelters. But honestly, I think we have a series on our hands here at the moment.
Can we double back, guys, now that we've sort of seen how this plays out, and talk about the draft? Because it was really unexpected, I think, kind of what both teams were going for, but especially, Virtus.pro. Now we've seen what they were trying to do with the Haze, with the Ivy, kind of made sense to us here, with the Abrams. Looking back, obviously it looked a little bit surprising, ZP. How does it now sit with you?
It's still weird because I feel like VP wasn't necessarily punished in the draft phase for what they were highly valuing. I don't really know how you see them go with the Abrams that early and you don't grab the Holiday in turn. I mean, we saw the KLS get amazing value off the Holiday. It was part of their linchpin to keep them up and relevant in the early to mid game. And I don't know if what was valued by Abrahams on the other side was worth giving up the Holiday and where it went, because it was a very weird draft on both sides, and both teams arguably gave up value at different ends of the draft from what we historically know. And look, meta knowledge changes all the time, and what teams value changes all the time. But when you look at this in full, I just don't entirely know about giving up the Holiday when you have the opportunity to take it that early. But overall, in terms of where the Haze was, I was kind of mixed on the Haze value. I think Obikim had some decent moments on the Haze in terms of min-map pressure, but I also think part of why Abrahams was able to keep it close and competitive for as long as they did was the fact that as you get later into the game, the Haze does lose a bit of relevance at the same time.
Well, so I kind of enjoyed the way they use Haze, if the intention is the way I'm thinking, because I feel like they used Obikim on the Haze to get some of these ganks set up that they wanted to pull off. Whether it was like, okay, so you have Zergi pushing the left lane, he's got Together to deal with their jam side. You send an Obikim, you have a 2-on-1. With the way Virtus.pro like to bait with the urn, I feel like it can play really well into the use of the Haze if that's the intention of it. But I know what you mean about the hit or miss part, because it definitely had some like awkward moments, but the way he built it with the rescue beam again to help teammates escape from the last stands of Together, which, to be fair, Together did not really have that many good last stands, not because he didn't perform well, but because Virtus.pro were so good at disengaging from them.
I mean, Obikim ends the game with like a pretty respectable amount of player damage, but goes for Curse first at tier 4 and is, like you kind of mentioned, building a lot of the more utility focused items, right? Like heading into the sort of middle part of the game, just being a bit of a gank threat. Yeah, this is unlucky. At least look, at least it expired, right? We've had situations like I go back a few months where people literally, I think it was like I want to say Mirage got stuck inside a building because they TP'd to someone on a stairwell and just couldn't get out at all, which was pretty awkward. But here's your breakdown towards the end. I've never really seen this more utility focused high roam pressure Haze, right? Like building like superior stamina, like I said, getting that curse in there seemed to be pretty effective. We know what kind of looks Obikim likes to go for. I think the last thing I wonder is if we see a Gun Ivy, should we be expecting the game to go long? Because Zergy was a monster by the end of the game. And look at that objective damage, but it definitely took a little while for them to get online and put them in a bit of an awkward lane on that left side.
The short answer to that is yes. You should expect things to go long when Gun Ivy is going to be played. And, for VP, they're going to telegraph that pretty immediately when you look at who is playing the Ivy. If it's Zergy and you don't have an otherwise Zergy hero, then yeah, they're trying to set up a team that will ramp into the late game and give the opportunity for Zergy to be that effective. In terms of Hayes building the curse, I think that's one of the parts of the build I did like quite a bit, just because I think in general, when you think about the value of locking someone down and completing kills and all the different ways that people can sort of get away from pick-off attempts, I think Curse, you could still make the argument that to this day is probably one of the most underbuilt items in Deadlock relative to the value it can give you, especially into the late game. And, I'm happy to see VP bring it back, even if it's on a Haze.
Now,
it's not even necessarily for his kill potential, right? It's for like the team's kill potential. Yeah. When you saw Saf get lasted in, pops a curse on Saf, and now you can't enter the shadows, you can't escape, and you're going to get that guaranteed kill. But that's kind of I think the style Obikin likes to play, is that he will build supporty items to help his team win these matches. Yeah,
you guys mentioned the rescue beams were really important, especially against a team that was trying to make use of a lot of those proximity-based ultimates, right? Like Final Stand, we saw, of course, that Frozen Shelter was made extensive use of there as well. Now, quickly, Jason, before we head to a break, it's not just Deadlock Fight Night powered by Intel. It's pumping out some great quality Deadlock tournament coverage. There's more out there.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, I did, inform you guys, if you don't watch Deathy's stream, he did put on the Deathy's Death Slam, where he takes some ordinary players, gives them some coaching, and has them go head-to-head in a bout. They had an insane amount of applications within like the first 8 hours. They actually had to shut it down, and they got their team settled up. But they are going to be heading into their playoffs over on May 10th at 2 p.m. EST, which if you're over here in Europe, that is going to be 8 p.m. CEST. And you can check that out over at twitch.tv/DeathyDL to see how the playoffs break out. I love to see him putting on something like this. And there's a lot of people in the community who want to get like their toes dipped into the competitive aspects of Deadlock, improve their own gameplay. And I'm so happy to see him put on this tournament for the community.
Yeah, it's great to see him pull back the curtain a little bit on what it takes to become a competitive Deadlock player. Obviously, Deathy, friend of the show, or enemy if you're referring to Jason, but obviously great to have him involved a bit more in the community. And hopefully we see more from that. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, we'll have the second map in this best of 3 money match. It's $1,000 on the line, thanks to our friends over at Intel. And we're going to leave you in the break with some trivia questions to keep your brains engaged while we take a quick break. Oh, it's heating up here at your Deadlock Fighter number 24 for EU, presented by Intel. Uber, Jason Kaplan, ZP here, bringing you all of the action. And a long game in our first map of this money match best of 3. You might have been surprised seeing a bit more of a mixed team in Abraham's really take it to Virtus.pro with a much more competitive game than we saw in the Challenger match. That is for sure. ZP, you were mystified by quite a number of the picks through the draft, but see, VP, they always seem to find a way.
And they do, and I mean, their fundamentals are still really hard to argue with. I'd say the best example of that in the entire last map was where they turned 3 picks, a mere 3 picks, into Urn and Mid-Boss at the same exact time for what would eventually be their lead that they would not give up the rest of the map. Their fundamentals on macro are really good, regardless of where you may rank what they're doing meta and draft-wise. And look, the reality is that behind the scenes, a lot can change over a 2-week period of time. And I think we've clearly seen that here in the European region, where we are looking at a very different meta and what is getting highly valued relative to, the last competitive play that saw the light of day. So it's always interesting to follow and, seeing the reasons as to why, and, seeing the games play out and sort of get insight as to why things have actually changed. It's all super, super cool.
I mean, we can't forget that it was an Abrams first pick for Virtus.pro when Holiday was open, when Mirage was open, like when Sinclair was open. You go back 2-3 weeks and you would never have seen that as a first pick. You would have almost guaranteed seen Holiday every single time. But there has to have been something changed in this last week between how the teams are playing to see Abrams prioritized so highly. Also, Mo and Krill, he was picked or banned, I feel like, every single game, ignoring last week since we didn't have DFN, but like the 2 weeks before that, every single week. And yet we haven't seen him in any single match so far.
Really feel like he would have had a home in that previous game, especially with the Vindicta composition, right? But not even looked at, no sort of lockdown to pair with what the Vindicta can do. So curious to see how that plays out. We'll know, if that was just like a random freak, weird draft, or if it was something that was here to stay when we go into our next game. Something else that's here to stay, though, of course, is a new line of merch over at DeadlockFightNight.com. That's right. We are continuing to churn it out. Big fan, of course, of the Dynamo merch here as well. And honestly, that 7 merch is looking pretty darn anime. So big shout out to the crew over at DFN that are, churning this out. It is legally distinct, folks. That means that nobody's going to come for you. Valve are not going to send their minions there to, appropriate your apparel. So that's there to stay. Don't you worry. It won't be a shirt off your back. Deadlockfightnight.com. You can head over there towards our merch tab. There's other ways to support our show on there, but this is a big one. So if any of these designs particularly speak to you, it'd be great if you could, pick some up and also share us, a photo on Twitter. Let us know that you're repping the DFN brand and also some of these fantastic designs out there in the real world. But back to the cursed apple now for the time being, because we're heading to our second map in this series. Virtus.pro wanted to play a long game. Gun Ivy was one of the things that got them there, alongside a Yamato that was able to get out of hand a little bit here. We saw a composition from Abrahams that didn't have a distinct playmaker, right? They managed to get the Warden and Sinclair set up, ZP, so there was no threat of that Warden the Sinclair, getting turned against them. They were trying to make plays with Kelvin.
Yeah, I mean, their idea was they come in with the Kelvin and Frozen Shelter, Last Stand. I think the problem that you have there a little bit is that, well, you let the Yamato get through or you didn't let the Warden get farmed enough because, again, you had the certified Rorschach moments, twice in that game of, all right, Frozen Shelter, Last Stand, let's get at the Yamato. Uh-oh, Yamato got hands. We didn't want this at all. So there's kind of a problem there, is that if you're going to lock people down for guaranteed kills, you better make sure that you're locking down people that you can actually kill, which was not the case.
It wasn't even Yamato. They couldn't kill a single Holiday. I mean, and I think they had a Warp Stone and they have the bounce pads, right? But they didn't actually have any like ethereal shift or anything like that, Jason. Just the mechanics of the KLS made it hard to catch them. I mean, what are you supposed to do about that? That's the only way of making plays you have. And I think that Abrahams have realized that's not enough to win.
I think is I'd have to go back and check how many people were actually in the Frozen Shelter out of Abrahams to go for the kill in the KLS. I want to say there was at least like 2 or 3 players, but I don't know if it was like the damage dealers or it was just kind of like supporty sort of players for them. But the fact is they couldn't kill him. And Abrahams, the response to what happened last game is to ban the Ivy. I mean, Great Talon's still open. Obviously, they want to leave it as a potential pick for them, but we know VP, they're not going to let it get through. This is where things get interesting. Will we see a Paradox or Holiday pick right off the bat here out of Abrahams?
Do we target Zergy's hero pool here? I mean, obviously, we talked about maybe sometimes Zergy being forced to go in that Ivy direction. Is that consideration?
I think they're trying to take away the Ivy because they don't like the game style it went through. I don't think you could fully ban out Zergy because I don't think you want to prio in Infernus. I mean, you could prio the Geist. I don't know if you want necessarily prio grabbing Infernus that early, but okay, Abrahams is going to pick up the Paradox early. I'm happy for this. I'm glad it did turn into, an early pick Abrams and then giving up Paradox Holiday, because I still think from all the objective evidence we've seen in the last 2 weeks, letting a team open up with Paradox Holiday seems like an absolutely atrocious idea. And on the same note for VP, I think you have to take Holiday in one of the next 2 picks, but based on their previous picks in the last round, they presume they go with Abrams. Like, I would expect Abrams Holiday in response.
It's so based. Shout out Hoot in the chat asking for a patch. Brother, you got a game to play. You know what I mean? We need to stay on this patch for the time being here. Although, it's funny, isn't it? We get towards the end of the patches and the metagame just tends to evolve in its own direction. What is it that makes Abrams such a priority pickup for VP, Jason?
I'm for an adventure.
Your guess is as good as mine, man. Like, I don't know. I think maybe it's the way they're playing it with the rescue beam and not necessarily using him. I mean, I guess they're playing him in a flexible style where he could be that like front brute force of a hero, but he also could be more of a backline to help punish anyone that charges into your backline, not to mention with the rescue beam to help them get away. But with the Kelvin being picked up alongside it, I mean, that's to me, it's not like an S tier lane, but it's like an A+ tier lane that you could have happen if you do pair them together, which is possible. But it depends on if they get the Vindicta, because then if you have Abrams Vindicta, you leave Kelvin open to join someone else in a lane.
Is it ever worth it to take Holiday and Paradox in the same draft, ZP?
Yeah, yes. When we've seen teams get Holiday and Paradox in the same draft, again, 2 weeks ago, it was dominating. It was crushing to have both in the same lobby. So the fact that the opinion has seemingly changed a little bit from Abraham so far,
mad.
it's a little weird. They're gonna grab the Vindicta here, I think. Well, you take a look at this. It was double lane denying is what you saw here, because you don't want to give up the Shiv with Kelvin and you don't want to give up the Vindicta with Abrams. The 2 picks Abrahams just came in here were both direct immediate responses to the first 2 picks that VP came out.
How are they forcing Abrahams to draft a certain way when they first pick Abrams? Like, it doesn't exactly sound like they're taking control of the draft. It's like a reasonable pick that maybe is just like a comfort pick for them. But just taking the Kelvin has created this situation.
Yeah. I mean, you fear the lane combos. You really, I don't think any team wants to give up those particular lane duos because they're just kind of seen as like the 2 strongest side lane combos you can have in Deadlock right now. But on the bans, it's going to be really interesting because I think if you're Abrahams, if you don't want to play the holiday, surely you got to at least ban it.
But I like the adaptation because Virtus.pro, I don't think they want to see a Geist possibly be banned away. So instead, they take the Geist now, knowing that they're not going to ban Bebop or Holiday. So they're guaranteed to get one of those 2 heroes off the turn in the next pick, most likely.
So they have to pick Warden now, Abrahams, right? Sinclair banned?
Too.
I would say, if anything, to me, the signal is that VP wants to pick the Warden.
Which is why you take it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, which is why they may take it themselves, or I mean, potentially ban. Okay, this side the ban Yamato. If you're VP here, I would surely think that this is a time you stop messing around, you pick the Holiday. But in turn, they also might pick the Warden because they've gotten rid of the Sinclair, and now they've created conditions where you can reliably play the Warden. And in terms of what's available frontline wise, especially with the Yamato being gone, it wouldn't be bad for VP to pick up the Warden here.
Okay, so obviously, yeah, VP not first pick, but they do get first pick after the first round of bans. So here's the Holiday. It virtually says Abrahams have to take Warden here, otherwise they're going to be in a bit of a scary spot. There's nothing to really answer the potential devastation of that hero. Obviously, Yamato and Ivy both banned away here. Still plenty of options to work with. We've got to start asking about, like, we saw Haze pop up. Infernus obviously is an option for Zergy. You can always last pick some of Zergy's heroes because they tend not to get looked at too hard. And there's the customary Warden pick.
Kind of interesting, Jason. When I look at this, I would have thought that VP would prioritize Warden more after banning the Sinclair, but instead, Abraham's just like, well, I guess we'll pick the Warden now in turn.
Shout out Potapeno with the subscription. Thank you.
I don't think they needed to pick Warden for Virtus.pro because I think like Kelvin could be such a good counter to Warden in my eyes because you can lock him in and pretty much like out heal the damage he can do if he's not super fed, or you keep him out and then you make that last stand do nothing. Like you do like some control in terms of like the landscape you can play in by denying him angles. Yeah, I don't know. I think Shark doesn't really want to play Warden. He doesn't want to play Mo, to be fair, either, after what we've seen the last few weeks.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't think it's necessarily like a guaranteed pick, but I'm mostly looking towards like what is Zergy going to play with Ivy? Oh, Shark. Okay, well, there's the moment kill for Shark. This is a very insanely beefy frontline for them, but they really need like a really strong carry right now. Obviously, guys can get to that point. I'm assuming we're going to see an Infernus come in for Virtus.pro.
Yeah, it's got to be Infernus, Jason. Like, if it's anything other than Infernus, I will be shocked. Like, they haven't gone to 7 ever since the E-Shift change. And you think about Zergy's hero pool, it could be Zergy on the Geist, by the way. They could go something else and they go there. So, okay, it's going to be Zergy on Geist is actually what we're going to get here. And VP valuing the Lash is interesting because I know for a fact that VP thought Lash was like one of the worst heroes around just 2 weeks ago in their internal team logic. So things have changed.
Okay, so you're satisfied with the carry option on this VP side then? Because Geist was obviously already in this draft. Now we realize that maybe it might even be built differently, but do you feel like the damage is still going to be there for VP?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you have so much kill potential. You have the lasso, you have the combo, you have the death slam. Like, you have a lot of angles to open up kills, not to mention the frozen shelter. That you don't really need an insanely high amount of damage because Geist is just naturally going to have it in her kit anyways. Especially with like the Malice build up, the Drain have a lot of sustain. You have a lot of sustain across the board for this team right now. A lot of escape potential as well. I mean, Virtus.pro, the combo they have, I sure as hope Abrahams builds Toxic Bullets because you're going to need it against this team with how beefy they are.
I think when I look at this, I value the Paradox a lot. I think one of the more interesting things for the matches prior to today was that even though teams were really valuing the holiday, they played better with the Paradox when they had it.
All right, here you have it, folks. Virtus.pro going up against... I should have done it like the counter pit announcer. That would have been so much better. Raise your hands for Virtus.pro versus Abraham's here. One game down already in this best of three. $1,000 on the line. You know the drill. Show some love over to our friends at Intel. Thanks for you guys for keeping up in the chat. Big shout out to those new subs as well. Thank you for your support. Let's get it on.
Okay, that is the deepest cut that I was not expecting. That just brought me back a long time to go back to the raise your cans guy. Like Jason, what in the world?
I don't remember how many years ago that was, but it definitely makes me feel old in esports. Oh my god, 2016. Yeah, that was a long time ago. My lord. But you know, we're gonna be heading into this game. And before we do like fully get into this, because we know the sides are different over at the top. There they go, gonna be fixed. I just want to give a quick shout out actually to if you guys head over to our public Discord server we have for DFN, you can do exclamation point Discord in chat. I'm trying to get some in-houses running. If you guys are tired of playing pubs, then you want to get in more of a competitive environment where everyone's communicating and playing together, just head over there and join the server. Not to mention there's a lot of conversations about DFN that happen in that server at the same time. And let's get some in-houses going over for EU players. I'm not going to stay up till 5, 6 a.m. to do some NA ones.
Also, the interesting part to me when I'm looking at this draft, it's Hoot on the Mirage and Jamside on the Warden. On one hand, again, it makes sense because you want your Warden to just kind of leave the game and ascend to greater levels of farmhood, which is very naturally within Jamside's playstyle. But I'm not entirely sure. I mean, we'll see where it goes. I do think, though, on a baseline level, what TAS is able to do on the Paradox relative to some of TAS's other heroes is at times otherworldly, which is kind of why the point, even back in the last major set of tournaments, I thought it was a mistake that Holiday was getting valued over Paradox. So we'll see how the Paradox factor goes into play here, because for me, Jason, as I'm looking at that, I actually think this series is going to go to 3. That is how much faith I have on TAS, on the Paradox, and the Abraham's team comp over VP for now.
You know, I was thinking to myself of like, who do I think is better as Paradox, TAS or Michaelis? And I want to say TAS, but not necessarily for the right reason. I think TAS has had to be a better Paradox or has more standout moments because of supporting roster around him. I think Virtus.pro in general have such a strong roster that Michaelis doesn't need to hit these ridiculous swaps. He doesn't need to do these ridiculous damage. Whereas TAS, he constantly puts up, the most, if not extremely close to the most player damage in a match. And he's also hitting some like ridiculous hooks.
That's really good. But also, we're getting down and dirty over here on the left-hand side. Hoot gonna fall early to this Mo Geist pressure coming on in here from VP. They make it a 2-for-0 on the back end. And HP-wise, Zergi's a little bit low. Shriek still in decent sorts. So even when you get people back in the lane here, you're not gonna be giving up too much lane presence, which sometimes you do on these early kill trades.
I mean, obviously a very good start for VP with their lead that they currently have. I mean, the lanes like Shark and Zergi together is gonna be really interesting to see. But I think, honestly, I feel like we're kind of Stockholm syndrome. I don't know what I want to call it when it comes to the Lash plays, because I feel like we've had Lash plays so often these last like 2-3 weeks, AP, that we're kind of like really afraid of it because we don't know how to feel about it.
It's right now, to me, it's kind of triggering my player versus the hero. I have all the faith in the world for Dimov. I don't have that much faith in the Lash overall. And I think what VP has to accomplish with the Lash is, it's a difficult game set up for VP at the moment. And I mean, there are ways it works out, but I think Abrahams has more traditional ways to kind of make this team comp work out for them. But man, oh man, the Calico Mirage lane is, again, bullied a lot more than I would have expected on the left-hand side, which is kind of a testament to the level of poke and pressure that Zergi and Shriek have been able to put out. But back over here into the middle. So a little bit of an interesting back and forth.
I mean, just really quickly on the Lash comment, though, I think the only team we saw be like exceptionally well against it, or to play really well against it, was actually Virtus.pro. Well, I don't know if it was against Paravision or One Win in the One Win Bombshell tournament, but they did such a good job of like working around the Lash and like not allow it to be as effective as it can be with the death time. Obviously, the changes to his ultimate taking a lot longer to charge, not a lot longer, but I mean, considering the was it like 0.1 second they added, it has had a major effect on the way you can play Lash and how easy it is for people to escape. But Virtus.pro were so good at like denying really great death slams that you would have to assume that they're going to be hitting some really nutty ones.
I mean, there's an argument to be made at points where the threat of the death slam is more effective than death slam actually going out, particularly in how teams will try to play around earn when death slam is available. You don't usually love going for earn fights when you can get death slammed in the early to mid game, but again, just look at how deep both Sharik and Zergy are at the moment. Zergy, though, may have bit off more than he could chew. A little bit of blood in the water right now. Could be pursued by Hoot on the other side with Saf. See if Zergy's able to go at Zergy real low at the moment. Still, they're giving respect to the low. Combo gonna come on out. Here comes Zergy off over dead. Can't go in for the swap in time. Hoot able to finish it off, and they lose Sharik in turn. Well played by Abrahams.
I like how you see him like trying to bunny hop in and then just dies before he gets the soul exchange. I mean, in theory, it was going to be a really good play and it probably would have netted them a kill, but a great turnaround for Abrahams. The dive going to be coming in on towards this right lane. And Jam side, you're dead. Yeah, this is the power of a Kelvin, man. You hit that ultimate, you dive on in, you're going to get a guaranteed kill. And why I still put this as like an A+ tier lane combo. Saint should not have gone back in for that.
Why was Saint there? That was Saint just solidarity saying, I don't want to live on this planet anymore without Jam side. Like, take me now. That was, I mean, that was about as certified organic feeding as you get. Meanwhile, though, other side, Saf gonna fall. Looking at the left, Zergy and Sharik reestablishing dominance in lane. Hoot, though, still pretty healthy, getting poked down on the other end. Oh boy, the Jin's mark. Making Sharik fear for his life a little bit, Jason.
Chunky. There's the death slam coming through. I'm not sure actually what it caught on to, but Michaelis going for another great escape. This time, he won't be so lucky. Together's going to take him down.
I know exactly what caught. It went on to Together, and Together used Killing Blow to avoid the death slam, and that's why Together ended up going deeper and turned what would have been an instant death into at least a trade. That's what happened there. It was really good timing from Together on the Killing Blow to just get rid of the death slam impact. However, Dimov still might be making something of it here, although he's eating a lot of Guardian damage for no reason.
I mean, there was like, 40 souls there. But yeah, definitely no reason there. Healing right immediately going to be taken away too, so that's not a good start for Dimov in this lane. Actually, his teammate, Kalis, being pressured a bit as well. He's down about half HP. So Virtus.pro, while they are having some good luck in the right-hand lane, which it looks like they might see a dive yet again happen, even though there's no frozen shelter available, Abrahams are still able to fight back.
Looking back off to the right-hand side. See Jam side get pushed a little bit back. Meanwhile, Listic off and in. Finds Saint one more time. Going into the church, and they don't have praying on the mind here. Even though, they don't feel like they need absolution for their sins. Instead, they're just gonna go around, focus on the Guardian, and dare the Warden to come out and contest them for now.
I mean, he is.
Okay, well, he's coming out.
But I mean, again, like, what is he gonna get? Maybe Kelvin, maybe Overkim is low in HP, but I mean, that's the downside of Warden, is that if you don't have like some assistance, you don't have a slowing hex, it's really difficult for you to kill anyone, I'd say, in the last stand, at least when it comes to the lane stage, unless they get stupid aggressive, or I guess you get a really good tether to come through. I don't think Saint was in a position to assist in that one. But all tied up here at 35k apiece. Getting close to seeing our first Urn and Rune spawn in. This first Guardian in the mid lane is getting very low in health, and I almost want to see the commit here.
Oh, the swap over and in. Tass it Together, crunching through the mid lane. Mid Guardian already down against VP, and I feel like we're seeing the Paradox power at the moment here, Jason, where Tass, I think back to where Tass looked best on Paradox. To me, it was back in the double soaking era where Tass, I feel like, did double soaking better than basically anyone, would get wildly ahead of the game, super mobile, and now you got Tass rotating off into the left-hand side. Saf, though, down early, right as you see the rotation coming on in. So we'll see what Tass is able to make happen here down the Calico.
That Guardian, they really want it. You know what? They have Burst and Shelter. There's no way you can contest this as Abrahams. You have to give this one up. And that will be the second Guardian of the game going down. First one for Virtus.pro. And Shark just charging straight through on the Moen Crew. We didn't see Zergy fall before. The Paradoxical swap comes through, and Shark should be dying here. Another kill coming in for Abraham's. Tasks doing God's work.
This has been a ridiculous game for Tass here so far, where Tass does well in the middle lane. They get the middle Guardian down, rotates over the left. They get the left Guardian down, and together is just picking up freebies here on the Shiv. Just getting people low, finishing them off. And to me, Abraham's, I mean, they're starting to build up a lead that may be unsurmountable for VP. I don't think VP has the greatest amount of comeback power within their team. I mean, it would be mostly on Mikhail S and Sharik to get things going, but the supporting cast behind it, it's not what normally VP runs with.
Might see another catch. Big skirmish breaking out in towards middle as the center sacrifices have already spawned in. Death Slam coming through. And a carbine does land, but so does the Death Slam. Catching out onto two. The combo as well onto the other player. That's going to be Saint, who had the most HP of that trade. A fantastic use of the combo to come through on a Shark to get themselves the 2 kills, but still Sass going to chime back in. The fight's still breaking out in favor of Virtus.pro right now by 1. But Obakim is just trying to defend this earn turn in up against Hoot.
Yeah, Hoot's damage is chunking Obakim repeatedly here. I'm not sure this is a fight Obakim can win. It's, you know, pretty close between the two, but Hoot doesn't necessarily want to fish off. He knows that the cavalry is coming and can't fully get away. He was trying to just sneak away with the earn. However, Listic able to chase on down, but guess what? We got respawns of the earn. We got a swap on in. Listic now in the danger zone after the swap. You got Saint in the sky. Everyone right now challenging for the earn, but it is going to be the Mo. Shriek able to get the earn out, but while this is going on, Jamside's able to pick up his pound of flesh on the other side.
Well, you talked about Jamside before and wanted to see him, you know, get farmed. He's currently at 10k, but so is Hoot, so is Together. So 3 players able to get off to a very strong start here. And again, now with Shark able to get away with the help of, or not with the help, but get away with the earn, I should say. Definitely not looking for a turn necessarily on the right-hand side. They're looking to actually go for a push on the left lane to get themselves 1 more Guardian taken. And Abraham's, I'm curious how they're going to respond. And it's going to be at the moment with Jamside and Tass to defend.
I think right now you're looking at what is the pulse of the game. Wherever Tass goes at the moment is where the pulse of the game is. However, Tass facing a 2-on-3 right now on the left-hand side. VP looking to overload it a little bit. And they got Tass in their sights. Tass getting chased down by Listic. Off and over. However, Time Wall being played around by Tass pretty masterfully. Puts Listic in a bad spot, kind of breaks ankles at the same time. And here comes Hoot, laying in the damage on the Listic. Listic running for his life, thrown into a tornado and dead. The chase down that does not work as Tass just blends him through the Time Wall and the swap.
Zergy didn't have Soul Exchange up just yet. He's going to fall. Hoot comes in after taking some farm at his own Guardian to get the next kill. On the other side of the map, that's going to be response. You have taken down Saf, and Virtus.pro do get the turn in. So at the end of all this, it's still going to be all tied up at 65,000 souls apiece. Though when it comes to who's getting farmed, I mean, Virtus.pro pretty much all equally spread out between all 6 members. And Abraham's really coming in a lot to Jamside together.
I think one thing that you start to be a little bit scared of right now for VP, I don't know if you love the fact that your most farmed is Lash, and on the other hand, the most farmed is Shiv and Warden. The scaling problem here is problematic, on top of the fact that Tass has just been very spot on continually making great opportunities for Abrahams via the Paradox at the moment. Even with it being even right now, Jason, you just get the distinct taste of VP being a bit behind for how the game has gone so far.
It definitely feels like that, but the funny thing is it's not really reflected in when it comes to like the soul lead. It's not reflected in the objectives either. But I don't know. I want to see how this works out for Together, because we've already talked to VP before when they dropped that map up against Paravision and One Win Bombshell, and Together just completely popped off. He like single-handedly carried the game, and they said, yeah, we just let him get out of control, and we don't. I mean, they don't really normally let that happen too often. They sent him at 13k, and he's already having a pretty strong game so far.
I don't know about the choice of target here. You go for the Calico, the Return the Shadow immediately comes out, able to get away from the Mo for the moment. And yes, Saf not going to get hit with the combo, but also gets hit by the Death Slam. So, okay, it was dead from multiple angles there, but a lot being invested to make sure Saf doesn't get away. Right-hand side. See how VP takes advantage of this momentarily man up. Still 1 minute to go here till buffs, so shouldn't be too much.
Oh, it's just going to be a lot about pushing out the lanes, jungle farming. They're going to be spawning on that right-hand side here. And how are both teams kind of positioned. Abraham's not really leaning into a way to go for the initial contest unless these 2 players respawning back in are going to head in that direction. And well, I'd have to correct myself. With Together heading over here, and with Hoot heading in that direction, it looks like they might try to go for the initial contest. But the problem is, like, Virtus.pro has such a good wombo-y, combo-y kind of comp. Like the Frozen Shelter, the Death Slam, the combo, the Seismic Slam, the Lasso. Like, they have such good catch, such good initiate. And honestly, I think in my eyes, it's up to Abraham's. Are they going to play around it? How are they going to make that wombo combo ineffective?
Right now, you got the jump in on the Hoot. Hoot, though, gotta go full tornado. Gets away. Wait, what? What in the world? That lasso actually hits. Hoot is down. That is ridiculous. The KLS grabbing him back in from the abyss. And now VP, they want a little bit more in this fight. They're gonna go for the Frozen Shelter. They isolate out Tass. No big swap coming in this time around. Holiday still ultra good HP, able to go on over. VP, the 1 for 3. But that lasso from the KLS was the stuff of pure filth, Jason.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that hits, but at least while this is happening, Jamside making the smart plays, going for a push on the left-hand Walker, and he's gonna get it. So honestly, what is it, 4 for 1 trade? I don't really hate that, actually. It's just about what they can deny after this. And Virtus.pro, they immediately say, hey, you know, you're gonna take our Walker. Well, we have the urn. We had enough kills that we can just take mid-boss right off the bat. 15, almost 16 minutes in. I think a very smart response, honestly, out of both teams, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see how that fight broke down. I think getting the Walker is not the worst consolation prize. I don't think they're gonna be able to do much to contest this Rejuvenator. But I mean, 86k to 87k down the Rejuvenator. It could be worse. Also, we got a little bit of skirmish going on the right-hand side. Listic could be in real danger. You get a lot of yellow over there, not too much in terms of blue. He is able to stay around his own Walker, and now here comes the Cavalry. You got the lash over, and Dimov has Death Slam good to go. Is Dimov gonna catch anyone? As you take a look, on the right-hand side, it's Dimov looking for it while the Urn's trying to get turned in on the left. Dimov's able to get one off the Death Slam, takes down Taz as the turn-in comes in from Sharik.
I don't know how he gets that turn in. You can see the collapse immediately onto him of Abraham's. I think they're gonna lose 2 players off this, but they get the Urn turn in and a kill, and they have Rejuve. It's still really not that bad of a trade for VP, even though the lead is only at 4k. Maybe that kill coming through will extend up to 5. But you can see minions have gotten all the way to the base of Virtus.pro. And I don't know, honestly, I'm very critical of, like, you know, Paravision and Abraham's when it comes to macro play. I think they made some very good decisions there. It's just unfortunate they lost so many players throughout this skirmish.
Super interesting to see it develop. And at 92k and 96k, still, you know, any team's game. Good time here with a little bit of a lull in the action. You know, Mitch, you've been seeing this pan out. What have been your thoughts so far?
Yeah, look, I mean, we talked about, like, the lack of initiation potential with Abraham's team last game with just the Kelvin. Now VP have, like, 4 different ways of starting these fights. I think the flexibility to take engagements where they want them to, and also decent soul allocation suits them well. Another such situation, though, is Tass tries to start something up.
All right, Lasso again, focusing here on Tass. Bring him on in for the big slam on the Walker. Tass, though, still alive for now. Swap is gone, but Time Wall able to buy some cover, able to go back in and be like, yo, Hoot, we got this Walker? Answer is yes. So even with the Lasso, Tass still able to get out of the fire. And the macro presence from Abraham's, even losing some of these team fights, even down the Rejuvenator, has not been too shabby here so far, Jason.
No, but I still think that's a favorable trade for Virtus.pro because they get a Walker and they get the flex slot. I mean, yeah, you do lose a little bit more control of your own jungle, losing the right lane Walker, but they still have their mid lane up. The flex slot is going to be worth quite a bit at this point. Knockdown going to come through. Initially catch on to South, the knock above the barrel. No lasso for 15 more seconds, though. You can just see, I mean, you can't really see anything. I don't know what's going on in this fight initially, but the Frozen Shelter has come down, trying to buy some extra time, some extra healing to keep Michaelis alive. The assassin had come through out of sync, but not enough damage to get the kill, and they will finally get the kill on a Saf, still giving them the 1-man lead.
So you take a look at where everything is at objective-wise. It actually is Abraham's a little bit ahead. But, you know, in ways that could be, you could look at it almost as a bad thing in the sense that once the last Walkers go down, there's a little bit more latent souls available for VP. So VP will get even a little bit further ahead soul-wise if no favorable trade-outs come in. But also, you look at the entire idea of, okay, who's getting your souls? Where's the economy going? I mean, Jamside has done the typical Jamside and has gone way ahead of the rest of his team. But we also haven't seen Warden necessarily be a big impact in these team fights either. It's been the Jamside farm show, and I feel like at this point in the game, you kind of, if you're Abraham's, you need to get your Warden involved a little bit more in some of these team fights. And, you know, now would be the ideal time as we're coming up on the next turn.
It's all about translating that farm and the resources allocated to you into actual impact in these matches. And that impact has to come in towards these team fights. As Virtus.pro is 6K in the lead, and I'm definitely gonna be looking towards the next earn spawn in 30 seconds to beat that point. Lasso is up, and it's gonna get a catch on the cat. And Saf will enter the shadows for now, but I think he might be entering his grave as he somehow gets. I think he used the launch pad to actually.
Yeah, he used the holiday jump pad to get out of there with the return of the shadow. It actually turned out to be the one way out. Rescue beam over in here from Obakim as you look at a mole in real danger. Sharik still can't get away from Jamside, drops the last stand, walks on forward, a force of destruction when the last stand is up. But also, now the last stand's gonna be down for a while. If you're VP, you're gonna look to engage when Sharik is back in play. But this fight is still going on a little bit. Death Slam still available right now for Dimov, looking in and around both teams, playing around each other. Zergi able to get the better of Saint, and now we got the jump in from Dimov. Abrams floating, Listic comes on in, goes for the charge. Together, looking to be his prey, charging off the jump pad, looking over and in together, getting pretty low right now. Listic still in hot pursuit, down he's gonna go, and VP end up making it very much in their favor at 1 for 3.
It's starting to feel like a runaway with the game too. 20 minutes in, the next turn has been spawned in, and Task picks up trying to run away from it. But honestly, the chase is coming through the slow, and Hex is going to be used out of Obakim to allow Listed to get in position. The reinforcement is going to be there with Hoot, as they do have 3 players to defend this urn. But I mean, I guess they will escape with it, but they're already taking a lot of damage on the mid lane Walker. The second of the game now going down, though I don't think we're going to see the right lane go down just yet. But Virtus.pro have created a really big buffer of a lead here, ZP.
Yeah, it's not too bad. 15K, we're kind of at the point where Abraham's, they're running out of time to solidify the game. They're also at a point here where, look, you could doubt the Lash, but if you have this level of farm as Lash in the late game, you are more of a threat beyond your Death Slam. Just simply dropping in for the right ground strike can do enough in the team fight. So it is one of the benefits of your Lash actually being farmed. But now, Abraham's, they have the urn. They're looking to turn in the urn, and okay, this actually could just be it. They're looking for it now. They know there's no Death Slam, so they just want to force it. They do. Task gonna drop the time wall, play around it. They actually play around the time wall real nicely here so far. Don't know if he's gonna live. Drops the swap though towards the end. Avoids the frozen shelter in turn. VP committing here onto the fight. They catch Saint out. Taz is still low HP together. Getting burned down a bit. Zergi though, getting caught into the back. Zergi going super low. Zergi getting live. Gets a little bit of heals, but no, is gonna go down. Hoot able to finish it off. 1 for 1 here so far. Saf right now getting chased down. So is together. 2 more down for Abrahams as VP stabilizes and chases.
They get the urn turn in, but they lose 3 players, and VP are just knocking on the front door of this last Walker, though I see them actually backing away considering how low Dimov's going to be. Not to mention Michaelis. They cannot afford to continue to push in towards this lane. I thought that might have been the avenue they wanted to go for, especially set themselves up nicely, but the mid boss going to be spawning in about 25 seconds time, and Abrahams, they're going to have their entire roster back alive. I don't think we're going to see VP try to force this down on the respawn. Instead, just trying to create some distance here with the jungle farm up 10K.
Time to move.
I mean, yeah, it's good timing, as you pointed out by Abraham's. Task realizing no Death Slam. Got to go for the turn in there. It secures it. But they're still just losing like quite a few players in every one of these fights. You have to create to Virtus.pro of like, even if they might lose the objective, might lose the earn turn in, they're still getting, 3-4 kills.
I think the problem you start running into though is that we think about Warden and getting good into the late game, but I actually feel like the peak Warden window is where Jamside had it, where you're like really farmed in the mid 20Ks and most of the game is at like 17, 18K. I don't think the Warden is a bigger threat. However, swap coming in right now from Tass. Right now, they're gonna be able to finish off Shriek. They do. The focus onto the mole continues. So quick little pick off there. Minute 45 before buffs. And one thing that I think has been a little bit problematic for Abrahams here, Jason, is that when they haven't been getting picks, it hasn't been timed around good objectives to get. They like you get the pick on the Mo here, but you don't immediately get a ton off of it.
And they're not really like set up somewhere to do that. I mean, the thing is because of, I feel like that mid Walker is what's still up. If it was like a left lane Walker, right lane Walker, you just have Hoot continue to farm up and push one of those lanes to get an objective while you're forcing them to group up against you. And they're heading for a mid boss here with a Death Slam up, with a lot of AoE damage with the frozen shelter, and no guaranteed way to commit it or to guarantee it for Abrahams. I think this is something you have to back away from.
Yeah, I thought mid boss actually was still down for a moment, so I take back the part of that. But I also don't think against this team comp that they can do it with just one pick. They need to get low and then get a little bit more from this. So we're on mid boss. Everyone is very, very split out at the moment. We'll see how this one comes out. Hoot, though, gonna fall early. Zergy able to isolate. I think it was Obikin with the frozen shelter to actually set all that up. And okay, Jamside's gonna last stand, but VP's looking pretty healthy overall. Maybe you get the Kelvin here, and you're looking for at least that. You get Kelvin, but what more can you get? The last stand is over, and VP is still in your face, ready to go. A 1 for 4 in favor of VP, done in the depths by mid-boss. And surely VP's gonna go and finish it off in turn.
Man, they're gonna go finish that off. They're gonna get mid Walker as well. Or, sorry, they already have the right hand lane Walker as well. I mean, that Death Slam was ridiculous at a demob. He just like popped up to say hello, saw like 3 or 4 players there. I don't know if he actually Death Slammed anyone down inside that corridor, but he at least got the vision, and they just outlasted the damage that Jamside had with the last stand. If you're going to invest this many souls into your warden, you better make sure those last stands do some ridiculous damage. But as you saw there, the disarm came through at a shark. He wasn't able to put out the damage in that like 1 versus felt like 4. And if that's your like linchpin, if that's like how you're going to win games, if it's obviously not with Task getting these swaps, I don't see how Abrahams comes back into this.
I think, again, we didn't have the best angle on it, but I think the way that kind of worked out is that you had Kelvin just land a really good isolating frozen shelter, and it just completely messed up the game plan for Abrahams. Now they are firmly behind economically. The Rejuvenator is against them, and they're looking for the Urn turn in here. And okay, this actually could just be the final fight that may be winnable for Abrahams coming on up. VP, Abrahams, open air into the Urn. See how this one goes, Jason.
And the swap's still available. And they're just going to stick it. Shard gets it. Swap comes in late. The Death Slam's going to be here. It catches on to multiple players. They're going to be bursted down here. Task immediately going to fall as Demon picks himself up a quick double. And once again, Virtus.pro with the man advantage. Yeah, Hoot was trying to push out the right-hand lane, but he had a Traveler in to help assist this, but he comes in too late. Abraham's down 3 players. This is most certainly going to be the Shrines going down.
We've passed the event horizon at this point. I don't think there's a lot of opportunities for Abrahams to get back to the game, because we just hit the classic element where, let's say you get a swap and a kill and it goes up perfectly. VP's gonna beat you 5v6 with this level lead, especially with your swap on cooldown. And as we're seeing the Patron get pummeled, maybe this is a good point here in just a second to bring in Mitch. Mitch, what are you seeing right now as the Patron is about to go down and VP kind of gets to do whatever they want?
Just do your job and finish the game, mate. We are seconds away and you're throwing me in. Get back to work.
Hey, they might not stay. They might not stay. Oftentimes VP will play it safe, but to Mitch's point here, Jason, right now they do look like they're staying, at least for now.
Well, while they're staying, it's a good time to bring in our host once again to stay here and talk about this. Uber. No, I'm not going to bring you back in. We're going to see the push back in towards the Patron. Frozen Shelter comes through and catches out to at least 1, and that's just going to be the demise of Jamside. The most fed player on Abrahams and Virtus.pro, I think, are to go ahead once again here after having a week off, changing the meta, changing the picks, the draft order, everything, are going to secure themselves another DFN victory, ZP.
$1,000 going the way of VP, your return champions once more, holding firm on the throne of Europe. Abrahams, they made it interesting, but the wheels fell off the wagon, and Paradox's Task could only do so much. VP, they did it with the Lash, Jason, so the Lash stocks have been going up. Even VP is playing it now. And while it may not have looked great when people first started bringing it back, clearly it has turned into something that is now, in fact, quite good.
I think it's a perfect time now. I can do it for the first time here to bring in Uber once again.
There
to
we
talk
go.
About this series. It's been a while, Mitch, but you got to see Virtus.pro once again. I'm pretty sure the last time you were here casting DFN, Virtus.pro at the top of the table, and you come back and they're still top of the table.
Yeah, it's like nothing's changed. I do know that there was obviously a bit of a churn period, and one win, for example, Paravision as well, were able to stand up. Look, a decent game, but not quite as close as the first match in this series. One thing that really stood out to me was just how many engagements that the entirety of VP were involved in. These guys were all across the map. Mikhail Essence with 25 assists, Sharik 21, Obikim 21. Your playmakers are playmaking. They are setting up so many of these engagements. And this is ZP, bearing in mind that a lot of the early fights and just some of the laning and the pressure on the Guardians, for example, actually goes the way of Abrahams. But they can't manifest that. They can't convert that in the mid game, because it seems as if the VP's ability to decide when, where, how, what, and why they fight seem to have given them the edge.
Yeah, I mean, I think the devil was in the details there. And yeah, there was a period of time where you saw the full unfiltered power paradox coming through from TAS. TAS went somewhere and the good things happened for Abrahams, but the overall team rotations, the way the bigger team fights were getting played. I mean, look, you think back to that mid-boss fight where you just see Jamside up in the attic going, I guess I'm gonna last stand, as like half his team is dying in a frozen shelter beneath him. VP just had better team positioning, better initiation, even without something like the paradox. I mean, they still have the holiday, which is, roughly equivalent, but, regardless, VP just a difference in how they're played together as a team, but also kind of the expected because the VP roster has not changed for months and months. And while there's a lot of familiar names in the Abrahams roster, the reality is they're a little bit newer in terms of team cohesion. So for their first outing as a major team together, not the worst.
No, I'd say pretty good, honestly. I think they showed some growth when it came to macro play. I think we're still seeing them like settle into how they want to execute some strategies. We're seeing Hoot getting to play some more of the carry roles, which I'm really happy to see. We're still seeing Task play extremely well. We saw Together do some sick things when it came to a Shiv. Saint had some great plays when it came to Kelvin. I think we're seeing there's a lot of potential in the team, but A, they need to stay together, and B, they need to keep grinding. And then I think we could see them one day take down VP.
Stock player of the match here presented by Intel. One person I think that really caught our eyes, it was a last pick Lash here in the draft, and there was some confusion about who might go over towards. But Dimov here being credited as a key playmaker in this game with 12 kills, topping the lobby in that particular metric, and also 15 assists, only dying the one time, ZP.
He made the Lash look good. That is the reality, is that oftentimes we've seen Lash get played and you don't get any value from death slams, you lose lane. None of that happened to Dimov. And I mean, before we even get to Lash, you gotta go back game number one, where, look, this was a well-played, by-the-books Yamato, generally right place, right time, and, kept pace farm-wise, where even with Abrahams throwing so much farm into Together, you had moments of, all right, we got him, Together goes to Saint, drop the frozen shelter, we're gonna get this guy. And then Dimov's like, you got who? Who do you got exactly? And you see Together running away for dear life as Dimov just doesn't care on the Yamato. So, I mean, you're just getting consistency regardless of who Dimov is playing. And that's why even when you saw Dimov pick the Lash, I was just like, well, I don't necessarily initially hate it, because as much as, Lash has been a negative for teams a little bit in the last 2 weeks at times, Dimov playing anything has usually been a positive.
I think Dimov has been kind of like the heart, not the heart and soul, but he's been like the rock of the team. I can't think of like a single bad match he has. He always plays solid. He always plays exceptionally well on any of the heroes he's playing at the time. I think he's just a good all-around player, and I don't want to say like one of the best players on VP, but in my eyes, I think I kind of have to say he's one of the best players, because you just don't see him have bad games. You see him always playing to the level they need him to have victories like they've been able to have here across all the DFNs, across Woman Bombshells, any events they played.
Here, of course, is your breakdown at the end of the game, so you can see a lot of this stuff for yourself. The Obikim Frozen Shelters, pretty nasty. Obikim spent much of the game actually getting locked out of Frozen Shelters in our first map, watching as their teammates were picked off, but here they were huge on the setup. Do we know yet why Abrams is going at first pick? Do we have any more information to sort of even guess as to why they're so hotly contested? Because let's stick on Abrams is of course going to make it look good, but is there anything that really sort of points out why this is such an important hero to secure first?
I think it's the evolution of frontline mattering a lot more in this patch relative to the previous patch, where E-Shift made more squishy things good. E-Shift isn't ruining Abrams' initiations as much. Abrams is still one of the best early laners in the game, with one of the more deadly lanes that you have to like pick or deny away in the Abrams Vindicta lane. So I think just the part where, what do you get at Abrams? You get pretty good early lane power that has kill potential in a way that a lot of other characters don't give for frontliners, and the fact you have a great combo with Vindicta that forces draft action out of the other team. And so long as you don't fall terribly far behind, I mean, Abrams has pretty good scaling into the mid to late game. So, I mean, you could argue, does all that justify an early pick? Maybe, maybe not, depending on where you land on, Paradox, Holiday, and some of the more traditional early picked heroes. But I think the idea of Abrams being a strong part of the team right now is pretty well justified with what we know about the fundamentals of this current version of the game.
Okay. Feels like it's less about trying to secure an objectively powerful hero, even though Abrams is, but more trying to make sure the centerpiece of your strategy is in place over multiple games. And it kind of helps, right, when you're prioritizing a rarely banned or first picked hero, and it's one that tends to characterize like the core of, or the soul of what you're trying to go for, if I can use Deadlock terms. So nice that VP can have a consistent look in their comps going forward. Now, before we wrap here on the Europe show, Jason, this might be the last snapshot we actually get of this, metagame before we go towards potentially, so we've heard, big patch. How would you sum up the European scene, I guess, in short, before we depart for the other side of the Atlantic?
That's really, I think this last patch, this is a really difficult question to answer off the top of my head. This last patch has shown holes in some of the teams that we've seen being at the top in EU. Virtus.pro, no, but for 1win, it showed some holes in like the rosters that the hero pools they have across the board. We've seen it show holes in the old Paravision in terms of their macro play. It's also been very punishing to EU teams, I'd say in general, not to sound too grim, but we've had a lack of teams actually in EU. I mean, every week it's been Paravision, 1win, Virtus.pro. It's been I'd say a rough patch for some teams, but we've seen some teams thrive in it. Virtus.pro have just proven to challenge the test of time and just be still consistently one of the best teams, if not the best team in the world. But for over in NA, actually, funny enough, it's kind of been the opposite in my eyes. It's actually given birth to a lot of strong NA teams and some good competition.
Yeah, can't wait to sink our teeth into that right after the break. Folks, this has been Deadlock Fight Night number 24 for Europe, powered by our friends over at Intel. It's once again Virtus.pro taking away that $1,000 prize. We'll be back after the break to sink, again, our teeth into NA and see what's what across the pond.